This conference will now be recorded.
All right, this is Sturbridge Conservation Commission. Welcome. It's March 2nd, 2021, it's 6 p.m. First thing I will do is read Governor Baker's order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 open order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines to the remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to or watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's demand video broadcast on cable television on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455 to enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This meeting number will not be open except for when active public meetings are going on. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the meeting in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of the meeting as soon as possible after the meeting. That said, I'm going to read the opening statement for the public hearings. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to the opening of the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertising. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. All right, with that, then I'll go to the quorum, and we have Stephen Chidester is here, Ed Goodwin is here, David Barnacle is here. Eric, how you doing, Eric?
Doing well, and you?
Good. And who are we missing here?
Steve. This is but I'm on the line. I am not on video yet.
Who's that?
Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman? Well,
can you hear me?
You probably better sit down, Steve. You're a little too tall. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have the video up yet, but I'm on the phone.
All right. What are you not?
You guys hear my video?
Everybody needs a haircut, Steve. You don't have to be shy.
I don't need a haircut.
I wish I needed a haircut.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. I didn't, All right. That said, we will start the meeting. We have 6:05 right on the button. First public hearing is 231 Podunk Road. It's local NOI proposed septic system for a new single-family home. And who do we have on the line?
So Marianne DePinto just sent me an email. She's having a hard time getting in, so I can start off on this. I just sent her the link again, so hopefully she can join us. Do you want me to give an overview?
Good.
Okay. So do you want to see, actually, Jeff, can I share my screen, please?
What's the question, Beck? You
I
can-
always asked if Jeff could, yeah, allow me to share my screen, so
Okay.
I can show you the plan. All right, so this is for 231 Podunk Road. It's a single-family house development. What we're looking at is work just in our local buffer zone, so between 100 and 200 feet here. What they're proposing, I said, is a new single-family house. The work that's within jurisdiction is the siting of the septic system and the leach field. I went out, we did review two different adjacent lots here in August of 2020. At that time, I did go out and review the line and did look at the line for these lots as well. And I didn't have any concerns with it. All work is within an existing, what has been maintained as an agricultural field. And there's no shown impact beyond within that field area. Just so you're aware as well, I did receive receipt of the legal ad posting and abutter notifications for the notice of intent. My recommendations for this project would be to include sedimentation controls at the limit of grading shown on the plan, and that would be the limit of grading would serve as the limit of work for the project. So with that condition, I'd recommend approval, issuance of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw, order of conditions with our standard special conditions and that noted condition. Marianne, were you able to get on? Are you? I don't see you on here.
Is she calling?
Okay.
Barry, are you on the public line? There's no one on the line.
Okay, Becky, can you see on your, am I looking at the,
You're looking at the bottom lot.
the blue, is the blue, no, the blue's is not the limit of the work. Where's the limit of work?
Yep, so blue is the wetland line.
Mhm.
Orange is 100 feet. And you can see at the bottom of, this is the septic system. At the bottom is the limit of grading shown. What I'm saying is that they don't have a limit of work shown on here for that. I'm saying that the limit of grading shall serve as the limit of work, and that's where the sedimentation controls should be. And that's right outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay. David, any comments? I'm going through the members now. David Barnacle?
No, I'm still looking at, this is David Barnacle.
Okay.
I'm still looking at the same thing that we had in our folder. And I was having difficulty in being able to see how the leach field wasn't within our 100-foot buffer zone. Isn't the slope going down from the front edge of the leach field going right across the 100-foot zone?
So the orange here is the 100-foot. So
Yep.
the bottom of the leach field is right above that. And I think they're showing this little dotted line rectangle as the reserve.
Oh, that's the
what you're looking
reserve.
at. Yeah, yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any questions, Ed.
All right, Eric?
I guess the only question I have is, how do those lines correspond to each other? The one at the bottom is squiggly and not uniform, but the 100-foot and the 200-foot seem to be uniformly cross.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're pulling it from the westernmost points here. So if you see right here, it projects the buffer here, and then it's further here. I was noticing that up here, because if you look at the line here, it pulls back, but the point up here on the plan is projecting that furthest line. So I think they kind of connected the dots of the closest lines, because it's got that weird curvature there. So
okay, are you comfortable with the line, Becky?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I went out there in August and looked at it, and I looked at it and I walked up. I didn't walk to the full end of the property, but that's much further from this point. So I did walk up through the field and, well, obviously into the woods where the wetland line is, and came out in the field, and I didn't have any concerns at that time.
Okay. If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Stephen?
Oh, there
Yeah.
we go. Can you hear me?
Oh, there she is.
Oh, I couldn't figure out who I was. On the top, I finally found myself. Yes, the wetland line, they took almost like the worst case scenario when drawing that yellow-orange colored line, because the 100-foot buffer zone, when you start to take it from any one point, forms that line. So that essentially it's the worst case scenario as far as the maximum 100 feet away from the wetland.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Stephen?
No further questions.
Steve Haldeman?
Yeah, no further questions. Looks good.
All right. And I don't have any further questions. I'm going to ask for public input. Anybody in the audience would like to speak on this?
Hold on. Good evening, everyone. Is there anyone on the line to speak to the public hearing for 231 Podunk Road? Anybody that wishes to speak to 231 Podunk Road? There's no one that would like to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Chair. On that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Eric Gaspar.
Eric,
David Barnacle.
second by David Barnacle. Any discussion?
There we go.
Hearing no discussion, I'll ask for a vote on closing the public hearing. David, how do you vote?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Yeah, all right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve standard work orders for 231 Podunk Road.
We're getting Marianne, could you? Marianne's the one that
No,
came.
that's me. We got a little problem here.
Wow.
Hold on, give me 1 minute.
Hurry.
I just said motion.
There we go. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I sent the motion by Morse code. I hope you understood it.
I did. I did understand it. It was seconded by Steve Haldeman the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Steve, you want a second?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Eric.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
All right, David,
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen,
Stephen Chittister in favor.
all right, and Ed Goodwin in favor. Did we get
And
everybody?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Steve Haldeman, I'm sorry, Steve.
No, that's okay.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Literally.
All right, it passes unanimously. We are on to Podunk Road, 233 Podunk Road, local NOI, proposed septic system and construction of a new single-family home. Same deal, Becky? You want to bring that up?
Yep, same deal. Let me share that. All right, same overall plan to show where the wetland lines are here. So, right, same thing, new single family house. The work that's within jurisdiction is the portion of the house and the septic system. All work is within the hayfield. All work is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We received the legal ad posting and a butter notifications. Same recommendations. I'm going to recommend that sedimentation controls are included as grading as shown on the plan. The limit of grading shall serve as the limit of work. I recommend approval of the project, issuance of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw orders of conditions with our standard special conditions and the condition I just noted.
Great. Any discussion? David?
Ask some of the others for a minute, please. I want to go back over my notes.
All right, Stephen.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Eric?
No, I'm good.
Good. Steve Haldeman.
I'm good. Steve Alderman, I'm good.
And Ed Goodwin, I'm good. David?
Okay, thank you very much, David Barnacle.
You all set? Okay. Jeff, could we check with the audience?
Hold on. We've got some video problems. It looks pink on TV.
You mean other than the fact that I'm on screen causing the broken video?
I wouldn't put, no, it's something else.
I'm sure.
Okay, anyway, is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to 233 Podunk Road? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to 233 Podunk Road? No one's on the line, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Thank you. With that, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Eric Kaspar.
Seconded.
David Barnacle.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. Eric, how do you vote?
Eric Kaspar in favor.
David, how do you vote?
Barnacle in favor.
Steve Haldeman, how do you vote?
Steve Alderman in favor.
Steve Chidester, Stephen,
Stephen Chittister in favor.
and Ed Goodwin in favor. Now, do I have a motion to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
David will make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve of the local NOI regarding 233 Podunk Road for the construction of the associated site work and the construction of a single-family home there.
Do I have a second?
Eric Kaspar second.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion and hearing no discussion, we'll have a vote. Stephen, how do you vote?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric?
Eric Kaspar in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Alderman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Passes unanimously. All right.
All right, great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
You're
Right.
welcome. Good night.
All right, we are now at 423 Main Street. Continued NOI parking lot improvements, DEP file number 300-1091. Becky?
Yep, so this is a continuation from our last meeting. We didn't have a DEP file number or their comments at that time. Since the last meeting we had, DEP has provided those and comments. In addition, the project team has revised the plan to reflect DEP's comments to include some erosion controls on one portion of the project, revision to the 100-foot buffer zone, and they also made the revision and added the split rail fence that we had discussed at the last meeting to protect the rain garden from inadvertent plowing, snow plowing into that. And they also made the revision to the globe thistle on the plan in the rain garden. So my recommendation at this time, based off of those revisions that we have received, I recommend that we approve the project as shown, and then I would add the following conditions as well. I noted all of them in my detailed agenda if you want to go through them, but our standard special conditions, I would add a condition that because we do have a restoration plan and plantings within the rain garden, that the certificate of compliance shall not be issued until after 2 growing seasons to ensure that the rain garden plantings have survived. The SEC reserves the right to require additional plantings to ensure achievement of 75% cover of plant species within 2 growing seasons. And then I had listed additional perpetual conditions for O&M, mostly for the rain garden, some conditions about snow storage and maintenance of the split rail fence.
All right. Comments, David?
No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, no further comments.
Eric?
No further comments. I'm happy.
Steve Haldeman?
No, I'm good. Nice job on this, Becky.
My only one comment is, where are they've got 5 apartments or rentals. Where are the dumpsters going to be, Becky?
Let me see.
That is a tight lot.
I think it was on the plan. Let me pull up the plan real quick here.
That's correct, Becky. You should be able to find it on sheet C102.
Thank you. Yep. All right. Let me share that screen. Let me zoom in for you. All right. Here we go. Ed, do you see the dump? There's an 8x8 concrete dumpster pad enclosure there.
Bingo. Okay, great. That answers my question. Thank you very much. All right. Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
So now, Jeff, could we go to residents outside?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Is there anyone to speak to 423 Main Street? Public hearing. Is there anyone on the line to speak to the 423 Main Street parking lot improvement application? There's no one to speak to that one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks. Hearing none, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Eric Gaspar.
I'll second the motion, David Barnacle.
Seconded by David. Any discussion?
I'd like to make up one point of discussion.
Okay, go.
There were many members of the Conservation Commission of the town of Sturbridge who thought that the Barnacle had gone daffy when he mentioned the fact that on the slope, there was a plan for planting thistle. And I would like to point out that because we have as part of this agreement that they won't plant thistle, and obviously in the plan originally there was globe thistle to be planted. And we have
Good catch,
refused to
David.
permit that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that time.
You're welcome.
And I'm in favor of the motion, by the way.
All right, so was that the motion to close the public hearing?
It's already been seconded.
Yeah, okay. All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David said he's in favor. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, that was a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the project?
I'll make a motion that we approve the notice of intent DEP file number 300-1091 for 423 Main Street with the appropriate notations from the conservation agent.
Eric Gaspar second.
Eric Gaspar seconds. Discussion. Hearing no discussion. How do you vote? Steve Haldeman.
Steve Halterman, I'm in favor.
Stephen Chittister.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David Barnacle.
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin is in favor. All right. Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Take care. We are now
Thanks,
on to 122 Main Street. Notice of intent parking lot improvements. We don't have a, do we have a DEP file number, Becky?
No DEP file number to date.
All right. All right, go ahead, Becky. You want to kick it off?
Yep, I'll just say that we do have receipt of legal ad posting and abutter notifications have been received as well. We do have Stephen on here, who's the engineer. Stephen, I can put the plans up. I do have one sheet with colored wetland line and buffer zones that we can use as an example. And then I do have the full plan sheet set if you'd like me to go through that too. So I'll let you give an overview of the project to start if you like.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, my name is Steve Giosa. I'm with SciTech Engineering, Civil and Environmental Consultants. We've been retained by the owners of 122 Main Street to help them with their renovation and upgrade to the existing facility. As the exhibit indicates, you see the wetlands, which were delineated by Natural Resource Services. The wetlands with the blue line, basically at the bottom of a very steep slope. On the exhibit before you, Main Street is at the bottom of the plan, the wetlands to the top. The 25-foot no-touch zone is highlighted in yellow. Again, it's beyond the limits of any of the existing pavement or the proposed activity for this project. And then you'll see the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zone as well. For improvements on the site at the present time, I'm sure everybody's pretty familiar with the site. We have the existing convenience store. It's been there for quite a number of years. I think some of the town records seem to indicate there's been a gas station convenience store here since the 50s. But the current owners are in the process of several upgrades. I know that what they have done on the property to date that I've been made aware of is replacement of the fuel tanks. They were older fuel tanks and they were recently replaced. We had spoken with the contractor and told them to coordinate that with the conservation office. It seems like something slipped through the cracks there and that did not occur. But again, the activity was limited to the existing paved surface area. But again, that is an activity that should have come before you first. But hopefully we can get this project on track following the proper procedures. But what the owners have asked us to do is look at other upgrades to the site. In particular, they have some difficulty with the pump islands located directly in front of the building. It creates some pedestrian conflicts as well as some difficulties with convenient customer parking in front of the store where, again, the customers can get out, walk into the store and not be crossing tri-vials or interfering with vehicles coming in and out of the fueling areas on the islands. So to accommodate that, they're requesting permission to relocate the pump islands as shown on the plan. It would be basically, as you're looking at the drawing, to the right side of the existing building close to Main Street. And in doing that, it would allow us to create a little bit of landscaping in front of the building, ADA compliant parking, and have the parking stacked in front of the building. And in doing that, we think it makes for a safer environment. Now, as part of the plan, they also are contemplating two small additions to the building, or two additions to the building. One would be in the rear corner. If you've been out there, the building is sort of like a little notch in the back, right in that area there. Small infill addition, again, within an upland area of the site at the top of the slope. And then a second addition on the opposite end of the building, or the north side of the building. And that would add some capacity there to their existing facility. And it would replace an existing paved surface. So we think from a mitigation standpoint, we're getting rid of parking lot surface in that area, replacing it with a building. So as you might expect, we'll have a little bit better runoff quality coming off that surface when this work is done there. We also looked at some of the other paved areas of the site, and particularly on the edges close to the wetlands, we're proposing elimination of some additional pavement in those areas. I think in total, in addition to the area that the building addition would occupy, we're probably going to eliminate another 14 or 1,500 square feet of paved surface, replace that with landscaping. So we do have a landscaping plan that depicts some plantings between the paved surface and the wetland resource area, essentially on the east side of where the fuel tanks are, and then also on the south side of the fueling area or the canopy area for the facility. There would also be additional landscaping near the building where we're cutting in some landscaped islands, and then some supplemental landscaping on the north side of the existing parking lot. Dumpster pad would be located outside the 100-foot buffer zone opposite the northwest addition corner of the building. We figured that would be a good spot. Number one, it's out of the buffer zone, and then number two, easy access for front-loading dumpster trucks to come in, pick up, and then route circulating back out through the site. So we think that that's going to be an improvement on the property. So essentially, it's a buffer zone project, a redevelopment. We looked at soil conditions to see if we could maybe provide some additional mitigation. And the two things we looked at is, could we supplement and add some structured drainage, the form of a storm scepter or some other water quality unit? But we have decided against that primarily because of the embankment and that slope that basically separates the current activity on the site from the resource area. And any drainage structure would have an outfall, and that outfall would alter and, I think, significantly destabilize a portion of that bank. So we really wanted to stay away from that as a mitigation option. Again, with C and D quality soils on the property, hydrologic soil group C and D, again, we didn't see the real benefits for recharge on site. There are some ledge outcroppings, and I think soils in general through this area are not conducive to recharge. So we felt that the elimination of as much pavement as possible was an appropriate form of mitigation for a redevelopment project. And I think that's the extent pretty much of the changes. So upgrades to the fuel tanks, new fueling equipment, so state-of-the-art equipment that would have to meet current EPA standards and DEP standards for this type of facility. And we're not expanding the limits of activity on the property, working within the existing altered areas of the site, and actually pulling back some of the impervious surfaces to create some additional landscaping where it's appropriate. We do have erosion control silt fencing depicted along the entire edge of the property, separating the activity from the resource area. So again, that would be maintained during and through the construction process. I think that's an overview of what we have before you this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Becky?
All right, so I did review the plans. I have not been able to go out to verify the wetland lines due to snow cover, so I will still need to do that. Fairly confident that it's at the toe of the slope, but that is something that I will need to verify, as well as have the board come out and do a site visit so they choose. In my detailed agenda, I did include my notes on this. We're still waiting for the contractor to install the erosion controls out there. As far as I know, he hasn't done that. So I would ask again that they get those erosion controls installed as we have the site open out there. I did check the site, didn't see any impacts down the slope from the work they've done or anything like that. So no apparent wetland impacts there. So going over the proposed project, you do have some mitigation measures there, the degrees of impervious surface and the adding of the landscape plantings and some restoration plantings. However, since the site is a land use with a high pollutant load, I would recommend that the board do ask that a full review is done to see if what BMPs can be added for stormwater. I understand the concern about the soils and the slope. However, it does appear there's areas that maybe there's certain things we can do to provide some BMPs for that stormwater for pretreatment, recharge, what we can do without impacting that. One question I had was, where is the flow of stormwater going right now? Is it going off back to Main Street? Is it overflowing, sheet flowing on the banks? Things like that could help us guide with what we have out there and how maybe we can add some of those BMPs. Some of the areas with the landscaping on the side could make for nice rain gardens. I do understand we'll have outfalls, but maybe there's some way that outfalls can go into a swale, which doesn't overflow in one section. So I think there's some options we can look at to make those improvements. Since it is a gas station, I think that's kind of important for the board to consider. So with that, right, I recommend, at some point the staff would go out and staff and board go out and visit, take a look at it, especially if we're looking at some options for where BMPs can go in for stormwater. But since we don't have a DEP file number at this time, I'm going to recommend, continuation. Our next meeting is March 16th. It's likely that we will have a DEP file number at the time. However, I don't know. I know that speaking with the town planner, they have some concerns with the location of the fueling structures that maybe this plan will revise. So if that's the case, I'd recommend maybe continuing to our April 6th meeting if there's going to be some plan revisions that need to be done and come in, and then also what type of time frame might be needed to give a response to the commission for some options for stormwater incorporation on the project. That's all.
All right. I'm going to go around the loop. Everybody have a comment. Let's get a comment in, and then we're going to continue this. I agree with Becky that the first thing that I wrote down is, where's the water going now?
Right.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of my first comments too, but second and third comment, I believe quite strongly that where they're moving the pumps over to the side of the building, and they're putting in landscaping going across the top of the hill, which leads down to what was formerly cranberry bogs. I believe that they should put a Cape Cod berm type affair between the pumps and the plantings that they're going to do, so that we're diverting any amount of the effluent that might come off from a spill or from the individual people pumping their own gas, so that it will protect that slope from having the gasoline end up running on it, or protect the plants that they're planting from being disturbed by the gasoline that gets put to it. And then, of course, we would have to figure out where, if it blocks this material, where it's going to go. And that brings up the stormwater, in-ground stormwater treatment again. That's all.
All right. Who's next? How about you, Stephen?
First, I want to say thank you for the thorough briefing. That was very good. And I appreciate the improvements that are being made with the removal of impervious surface and the planting. So that's great. We always like to see that. I agree with the comments from the agent that we do need to address the stormwater. So I look forward to coming out and seeing the site. That's it for me, Ed.
Okay, great. Stephen, I'm sorry. Now that we see your handsome face.
my self-cut hair. Yeah, I'm going to go along with what Becky says in her comments, and what David said, concern about the fuel. Definitely we want to postpone this and let the applicant gather up some more information for us. And also look at where the water is going now.
Okay. Yeah. Eric?
My only question is, and I apologize if I missed this, Stephen, when you were going through your explanation, but where are the tanks on site right now, as opposed to where they're proposed to be?
Right where the pointer is there.
Spot?
That's the existing tank area, and that's where they're replaced in that same location. So the tanks are not moving on the site.
Okay, it said proposed, so I got confused, like it was being moved. Okay, all right, and there's no other place on the property for that those could be put.
That's
They just
correct.
put them in, Eric.
Huh?
They just put them in.
Oh,
Brand
okay.
new. They didn't come before us, they just put them in.
Oh,
So, yeah.
well, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have any comment. I'd like to hear if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak before we go.
Good evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the 122 Main Street application? Is there anyone in the audience to speak to the 122 Main Street application? There's no one on the line, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we ask one more question based upon the explanation he just gave to Eric?
Sure.
When the tanks were taken out and the new tanks were put in, was there any testing done under the old tanks to see if there was any amount of residual materials that were left? And has any of this been reported to the state, or did they also miss the state as well as missing the town?
Yeah, so my understanding is there's been an LSP involved in all of the work on the property. There actually had been an LSP on the site prior to the tank removals, and then during the tank removal operation, they did have the fire department involved in the tank removal operation as well. So they did follow all the state procedures for the tank removal, testing, and replacement. They did unfortunately skip you folks, which is not appropriate. And I'm also not very happy on my client's behalf that the contractor has not put up the silt fencing yet, because that was something that I had mentioned to them months ago that should have been done. So my call tomorrow will be to the contractor on that issue. I can't make excuses when they're not following even the basic rules.
Isn't there a requirement that the town be forwarded a copy of the results of the testing that was done? I thought that was protocol.
Yeah, I'm not.
Nothing.
I'm sorry, I'm not the LSP, or our firm did not provide that service, but I can find out who that consulting firm was and get that person directly in contact with your office to make sure the paperwork gets there.
That'd be good. Thank you very much.
Dave, I did do some research on that. So when this came up, I did speak to the fire department. They indicated they had all the paperwork, and I did go onto DEP's site and was able to find the RTN number, the tracking number for this, and did do research. So I was able to see all the documents that the LSP submitted. And then also with that, I was able to find out on the site that, let's see, there was no reporting of contamination in groundwater, just in the soils. The RTN was closed out by DEP. So they did go through DEP, and they've closed out that case they have for this. So they've met their requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen, are you asking for a continuation?
Yes, we are, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. On that, all in favor of a continuation? Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halderman, I'm in favor. Continuation.
David Barnacle, you in favor of a continuation?
David Barnacle, yes, in favor. Continuation.
Yep. Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Before I answer, it looked like Becky had a question.
Do you have a
Can I
question?
ask her?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add, are we looking to continue to the next meeting in 2 weeks for that, the additional information, or the plans, Stephen, are the plans changing per the town planner comments? Do we need to continue this out to the April 4th meeting?
So
4 weeks.
yeah, I'm just checking the calendar here. We're meeting with the zoning board on the 17th, so it doesn't make sense to have a meeting prior to that. So I would say the continuation
All right, great.
Our April meeting makes the most sense.
Okay.
We can accomplish more, I think, in that time period.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Well, Eric Gaspar, I'm in favor of that.
All right, great. It's unanimous. Thanks, Stephen.
All right, very good. Thank you. I'm glad to see Stephen, such a popular name in Sturbridge as well.
Can't have too many Stevens.
All right, good night, folks.
All right.
Good night.
Now on to, I'm sorry I missed your hand, Becky. You're going to have to speak up.
I was trying to be polite for once. So.
Yeah, 650.
Don't see what it got you.
680, Route 15, notice of intent, proposed development of a nursery and tree farm to include a perennial stream crossing. DEP file number, and we do not have a file number?
Correct. DEP has not issued a file number in common.
This will be a continuation. Becky, you want to start, or does the applicant want to start?
Yeah, I'll just add, we did receive receipt of the legal ad posting and the abutter notifications for the public hearing. We do have the engineer on here. I'll let him give an overview of the project if he would like.
All right, and is that Peter Engel?
Yep.
All right, Peter?
Good evening, how you doing? So quick overview
Peter?
of the project.
Peter, I can put up a portion of one of the plans that's got wetland line and some buffer zone riverfront lines on it, if that would be useful.
Sure.
Okay.
So needless to say, there's a lot going on there. This is 650 and 680 Route 15, Podunk Road, Lead Mine Brook, travels parallel with Route 15 down until Route 84 there. The purpose of this project is to gain access to the upland on the west side of Lead Mine Brook for a nursery tree farm use, which is allowed by zoning. Basically, we're proposing to span Lead Mine Brook entirely, including the flood zone. It's a decent-sized bridge, 40 feet wide, a small wetland crossing, and then an intermittent stream crossing to get to this upland area. There is proposed stormwater associated with this driveway. The nursery tree farm area and the stormwater management associated with that. Building pad location would be outside of the 200-foot riverfront, 200-foot buffer zones. The driveway obviously goes through the riverfront area, trying to minimize any impacts to the stream itself, which we are accomplishing by not disturbing it, by spanning it entirely, and then trying to minimize impacts to riverfront area and buffer zones to get to this upland. There is a previously constructed asphalt pad out in the front on the east side of Lead Mine Brook, which is almost entirely in that riverfront area, which we are proposing to basically remove and restore to riverfront area as mitigation. There's also a little bit of wetland replication for the small wetland crossing that we're proposing on that driveway as well.
All right, is that it, Peter?
I believe so. Obviously, during construction, erosion controls would be implemented to control any possible erosion on the site. Straw wattles and silt fence, sedimentation basins. The stormwater system itself comprises of deep sump catch basins, pipes, particle separator units, wet basins. So there is, I think it's over 95% TSS removal of all stormwater on site. And that mitigation area is basically removal of that asphalt, application of loam, and then a conservation wildlife seed mix to restore that area. I think that's all I have for now, if there's any questions.
All right, Becky, you want to do your review, please?
Sure. So right, I did my detailed agenda and had some notes in there, and I'll save everyone from reading all those. But just quickly, resource areas that we have on site, we did have an order of resource area delineation done out here for a portion of 650. It did include all of 680 Route 15. We've got riverfront area, bank, land underwater. We've got a bordering land subject to flooding. We have bordering vegetated wetlands, and obviously we have buffer zone jurisdiction as well. So recommendations that I have at this time for this project. One, obviously we don't have a DEP file number, so we're looking at a continuation here. I'm also going to recommend that the board require some additional information. One, since we've got stormwater here, I'm going to recommend a peer review from a professional engineer for compliance with the state stormwater standards and our town stormwater standards. I'm also going to recommend a peer review by a qualified wetland wildlife consultant of the notice of intent application and all of the associated documents for compliance with both the state and local wetland act. The peer review should include a review of the wildlife habitat evaluation that was included. And then also that I pointed out in my notes, Lead Mine Brook isn't identified as a cold water fisheries resource. It's unclear if that's because the state hasn't looked at it or if it has been looked at. So I think that should get looked at as well. I'm also going to recommend that the project team look at alternative options and explore those to look at avoiding or minimizing impacts. As I noted in my detailed agenda, it appears that there could be some additional alternative options that will reduce or eliminate wetland impacts on site that haven't been looked at. I think it would be useful to have some additional details on the proposed nursery tree farm use to understand those uses and what type of land footprints they might be looking at and what the alteration associated with the proposed farm area. There's no limited work or detail on the plan for that use. And then also, I would recommend that the project is revised to be located on 680 Route 15. It appears that if the project could fit there, in my notes I kind of detailed that. I looked at some of the calculations, and it appears that there might be substantial land use there, land that could be used for this project there that would, one, eliminate all impacts to resource areas and or minimize them, except for some impact to degraded riverfront area. And with that in mind, if the project was revised to fit within that area in the front, some of those peer reviews for stormwater associated with the driveway putting in might not be necessary, or the scope of those reviews could be minimized. So as I said before, those are the things that I'm going to recommend in the form of additional information. Also, because we don't have the DEP file number in their comments, I'd recommend continuing it because those peer reviews require putting out for proposals, et cetera. I would recommend that this is continued to our April 6th meeting to allow for those to be put out, received, reviewed, and distributed to the board. That's all.
All right, I'm going to go around the room for comments to add to or subtract, comment on Becky's list. David, do you want to?
I'd like to start out with the cold water fisheries aspect of the project. It has already spent well over $3 million taking down 3 dams on the brook in order to be able to maintain the fisheries in that brook, and therefore for it to be classified as a cold water fishery, I think is de rigueur, regardless of what the general public may think, since the state is spending money to make it a trout pond again, or a trout stream again. It certainly seems like it has the appropriate habitat. And I agree with most of the rest of what Becky has said.
All right. Stephen.
Becky has a question.
What?
Becky has a
Dave,
question.
I was just gonna add, this is Lead Mine Brook, not Hammett Brook.
Oh, sorry.
But they are very similar in nature and quality. That's what makes me think that it could have that resource area value, that habitat.
Yep.
Close but no cigar, David.
Yeah. Hammett's coming back up again later on in the meeting. Stephen Chidester?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to have more questions as this goes along, but the one concern I had was you mentioned that this bridge is going to be 40 feet wide. But did you mean that's the length of the bridge or that's the width of the bridge? I'm looking at the plans right now.
The length of the bridge, the length.
Okay.
What's the width of the bridge?
So the width is 24, is that right?
The edge of pavement would be 24. The width of the bridge would probably be more like 30, 32.
32.
That's still a
I think.
pretty.
Let me see. Let me check that.
Yeah.
So this is a bridge for heavy truck traffic, is that?
Basically just providing two-way travel.
So there's going to be I'm trying to understand this. So is there going to be some facility in this upland area that require? I mean, are the public going to be traversing this crossing? There's like a retail. Oh, I see the nursery. So there's a retail nursery that's going to be in the upland. Is that the plan?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So that road width is for two-way travel, as well as emergency vehicle access if needed.
Okay. Gotcha. That's all for me, Ed.
Steve Halterman?
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed at the width of that bridge. I mean, that's like 4 lanes. But anyway, that's up to you guys to want to build that big of a bridge. No, I am very curious about that the option of building this at 650. Did I get that right? Yeah, 650, and it wouldn't have half of these problems. 3/4 of these issues would go away. So I look forward to seeing comments, response to Becky's comments, especially about the use of that other property. It appears that there's plenty of space there. I'm all for the project. I like tree farms, I like nurseries, but it makes sense that it went on 650. That's all I have.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all the rest of the comments. Does the applicant or his agent have any response to, or have they thought of any other alternatives? It's just, since we're talking about it, has that been considered by you guys?
Sure. So I can kind of speak to that and the cold water fishery thing. There actually was a study done on Lead Mine Brook in 2007. There's a report that I can forward to Becky. It was done by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, DEP, Bureau of Resource Protection and Watershed Management. Basically, that study concluded that, the habitat in the brook, like you said, is a decent habitat, but they did do a fish study and there was 0 cold water fish taken out of that brook. They note that the reason for that is likely from the creation of beaver ponds and pond species migrating downstream from Lead Mine Pond and those beaver dam ponds, and kind of, I guess, eliminating that cold water fishery. So all the fish in that brook are unfortunately warm water fish. And then secondly, like I said, I'll forward that on to Becky, about doing it on the east side of the brook. So I believe the goal for the tree farm is to become a certified tree farm, whether that's through the state or through the American Tree Farm Association, I believe. And the qualifications for those two organizations is a tree farm of a minimum of 10 acres on that east side of the brook. You know, outside of that 200-foot riverfront area to the property line is only about 2 acres. If we account for some of that degraded riverfront area, we might get another acre, but clearly not the size that would be required to qualify for those tree farm associations.
All right. Who hasn't spoken? Anybody? My turn. The question that I have for you is, I'm concerned about the building of the bridge. I would like proof of the fact that the owner of this property doesn't co-own or own other property that would allow access and allow a more reasonable route to this tree farm other than crossing the brook.
This is Mark Kubricki. I'm one of the owners of the property. I can speak to that. I know what you're referencing. Formerly, this was an assemblage of parcels under common ownership. The adjoining property in Hampton County in the town of Holland is not owned by our group. That's the commercial property in Holland. It's owned by a different group. So that kind of cut off the access to over to the Mashapaug area, which would have been desirable. This is what we've got is 150 plus acres in Sturbridge, and in talking to the farmer, that's what she really wants, is to have these 10 acres potentially to be certified. And I don't know that much myself about organic tree farms, but I guess there's some different procedures or whatever. The amount of traffic across would be truck traffic, as far as I understand it. Also, that the idea of having two vehicles be able to pass each other over the narrowest point, which would be the bridge area there. Yeah, we'd love to find a more suitable site that's more accessible, but again, we have 154 acres, and everyone agrees that this is the best place to cross Leadmine Brook. We have several thousand feet of frontage, but none of them are as suitable as this is. So I think the idea was this is the place to cross it. Let's make sure that it's safe. We don't have to come back to you and do revisions on it. It's a one-time thing. We only disturb the stream once. That's kind of our thinking on this.
Mark, your answer about the ownership was kind of general. If you could bring the next meeting specifics as to when this land became 160 acres, when it became solely owned, and all the details with regard to that, so that I'll feel comfortable in the fact that it hasn't been isolated in order to force the crossing of the stream.
Okay. I think that's all a matter of public record, and
good.
But I'm happy to provide it in a consolidated fashion for you folks.
Yeah, right. Sounds good. But we'll need to know that so that we have, so we can move forward on the crossing, because if there are other alternatives, we would want you to use them.
Yeah, we would love to too. This is not an inexpensive way to get across, but we just don't have access otherwise. And
okay, well, if you can prove that for me, I would appreciate it.
Oh, sure. That's not hard to do.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. With that, I'd like Mark, or what?
Should we go to the public?
Yeah. Public. Jeff, do we check with the public?
So quickly, while we're waiting, I forgot to add, one of the comments from Board of Health was that they show a proposed septic system back here. There's been no perk testing per Board of Health back here, or no records of that in order to approve, if it got to when it gets to that point, to have a septic system back there, that you guys are going to need a perk out there.
That's in your report.
Yeah, right, it's in my report, yeah.
Yeah, we're aware of that. Obviously, it's chicken and egg. We have to get in there to do the perk test, but you're right. If they're going to put a bathroom, which by the way, they did not propose a bathroom to us, but we put that set aside in there just so it's almost a placeholder in case they do expand to that point.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Is there anyone to speak to 650 and 680 Route 15, proposed development of a nursery and tree farm? Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the 650 and 680 Route 15 proposed tree farm? There's no one on the line.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Mark, would like a continuation? Would you like a continuation?
I'd like approval today. Since you're asking.
Yeah. Well, you can ask for the vote. I didn't ask you if you wanted an approval or not. I asked if you wanted a continuation.
Well, all I'm looking for is an unfair advantage.
I know. Would you like a continuation?
I think we'll put together that list of the property assemblage so you can kind of understand that. I think once Becky, once you see the evaluation of the stream, I don't think you'll require us to start from scratch on that one. I think that's a settled issue. But the other two, even though I'm always confused about why an engineer with a stamp isn't enough, that it has to have another engineer with a stamp to look at the same thing. I understand from Peter that that's just customary. That's what you normally do.
Well, that's what you said, is you're looking for an unfair advantage.
Touche.
So
Hey,
that being the case,
continuation, Mark, do you want a continuation?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Motion to continue, Stephen?
You want 2 weeks or 4?
Good question. Becky, what would you and Mark like?
Well, I did recommend a peer review for stormwater and also a peer review by a wetland wildlife consultant for compliance, review of the notice of intent for compliance there. So if you're requesting those peer reviews at this time, I'm going to recommend 4 weeks. So that way we can put together those requests for proposals, get those in, and get those back to the board to look at. The next meeting in 2 weeks is not sufficient time to get that done.
That'll be 4/6/21.
Yeah, but yeah, if that's what you're requiring, I would recommend that you vote for those peer review proposals.
Okay. All right. Eric, how do you vote?
yeah, well, I'm okay with the continuance, but I also would like to request the peer review. So I don't know if we do that same time or separately, but I think if we're going down this course of action, we might as well be efficient and just ask to get that done right now.
All right. Then we're back from the continuation. Becky? Peer review? Can you put together a peer review for this?
Yep. So what I recommended was 2 peer reviews. One from a PE, because we're looking at compliance for stormwater, and then the second for a wetland consultant for review of the notice of intent and associated documents.
Okay. So you'll pull the quotes together on that?
Yep. If that's what you're requesting, can you make? You made a motion. Do you want to go through and?
David, you agree with that?
I certainly agree with both of them.
Yeah.
The 2 specialists as well as the continuation.
All right, Stephen? You on board with that?
Yep, I agree. Both peer reviews and the continuation.
And Steve
Yeah, I agree with both things.
and Eric.
Yep, I agree with it all.
You already did.
I
I
agree with
proposed it.
Mark? We have a continuation. Thanks, Mark. All right, we are on to Shattuck Road. 96 Shattuck Road, RDA, confirmation that the proposed repair of a wetland crossing falls under the agricultural exemption. Okay.
All right, just want to add, we do have receipt of the legal ad posting, and we received receipts for the abutter notifications as well.
For what? For Shattuck Road?
Correct.
Why?
Huh? The public hearing.
What?
No, that's to be able to open the public hearings. We've received those.
Okay. All
Scott,
right.
are you on here? Do you want to go over your project here?
Absolutely. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech here. Here on behalf of the applicant, James P. Oppie, the applicant. So we filed a request for determination of applicability on this particular parcel. What it consists of, there's an existing parcel owned by Bill Shudzik. It's currently being logged off. It's in Chapter 61. They're currently logging that. There's an existing cart road that goes out to Mr. Pioppi's property, and just before Pioppi's property, there's a culvert that it looks like it got blocked and partially washed out. So you've got an existing crossing that's existed for a number of years. The regulations define land and agricultural use includes land maintained and forest use. So because it's maintained, it's in Chapter 61, it's currently being logged. It clearly qualifies for land and agricultural use. And then it further defines normal maintenance of land and agricultural use, which includes the repair or replacement of existing access roads. So we went through, did an analysis of the forestry requirements for repair of an existing culvert. So there's actually 3 provisions under the forestry agricultural exemptions. Number 1 being that every practical effort should be made to avoid access, including stream crossings and the construction of landings through and in resource areas. So there's no way to avoid this particular crossing. It's an existing access road, the sole access to the Pioppi property. So there's no alternative to this location. And then they further indicates where access, including stream crossings through resource areas, cannot be avoided. Every practical effort should be made to minimize impacts resulting from the construction of new access, including but not limited to maintaining and improving, but not enlarging existing access. So the proposal is to replace the culvert. The culvert really needs to be replaced. I think it may be undersized. So they're looking to replace it. It's 22 feet wide. It will be replaced with a 22-foot wide culvert. So it won't be enlarged, just essentially replaced, and the grades restored to make sure that there's free flow through there to prevent the washout that occurred before. The last item is associated with construction of new access or stream crossing. So item C doesn't apply because this is an existing crossing. So based upon that, we fully believe that it fully qualifies as under the agricultural exemption. That said, even if the commission for some reason thought that it didn't actually comply with that, because the area is unstable, we feel that by replacing that culvert, fixing that crossing, you're going to stabilize the area and prevent any sediment or gravel from washing across that crossing. So, I don't know if Becky can show you a photo of the conditions of that culvert. I think it was included in the packet that she provided. So it's unstable currently, and the plan would be to replace that pipe with a slightly larger pipe to ensure free flow, and then to stabilize that area. I think that pretty much summarizes it. As I indicated, we feel that it fully meets those agricultural exemptions. And even if the commission felt that it didn't, I think by repair and replacing this culvert same exact size and restoring that area would be an improvement and prevent sediment and material from washing downstream large storm events.
All right, Becky?
Yep. So I pulled up that picture for you to look at. I know that a few of you have seen that, but not everyone's had the opportunity to go out there and look at it. So this question did come up before the submission of the RDA. The question was asked, and as there is agricultural use out there, I wasn't 100% certain on it. So I did reach out to DEP and have a conversation at that time about the scope of the work. And at that time, DEP felt that the scope of this work didn't meet the kind of normal land and agricultural definition there. So we did have a conversation, myself and the consultant. He did feel that it did meet that, so he did submit the RDA. I did submit the RDA, they submitted the RDA to DEP, and I had a conversation with DEP about it afterwards. And spoke to DCR about it. And DEP indicated that they felt they have not demonstrated that this meets the forestry section of the agricultural definition with the exemptions. They didn't demonstrate that in order to, have this be part of, for the forestry, it would have to be part of the forest cutting plan. We do have an active forest cutting plan out here, which they, due to the, the washout nature of this crossing, did propose to put a temporary bridge on. The Piapi forest cutting plan also called for the use of a temporary bridge for this location as well. So because of those reasons, it was, conveyed to me from DEP that they felt this exceeded what would meet those normal land and agricultural uses in the definition. So my recommendation at this time is that for this determination that the commission issue a positive number 3, that the work described on the reference plans documents is within an area subject to protection under the Act and will remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, said work requires the filing of a notice of intent. And then a positive number 5, that the work and/or area is subject to review and approval by the Sturbridge Conservation Commission pursuant to our Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw. With that said, I do agree with Scott that this crossing should be fixed. That there is sediment. Obviously, you can see that it washed out. It's been washed out for some time. It has been driven over. You can see that the banks have sloped down into the stream. We do have the stream there, so it would be an improvement to have this fixed. But it's my opinion and DEP's opinion from who I spoke to that the work required to do that exceeds the maintenance kind of improve language in the definition. So that's my recommendation.
All right, we'll start off with David.
David Barnacle here. I agree with both of Becky's comments. Putting in the culvert as a replacement is a benefit, and DEP has got a really good point regarding the agricultural part of it. So let's get a notice of intent going.
Okay. Who's next? Stephen?
Same comment as David, and I agree with Becky's comments.
Steve Haldeman?
Yeah, this is Steve Haldeman. I agree with Becky's comments, and I think we should follow them and require those comments.
Okay, and finally, Eric, right? I missed you, Eric. Yeah.
DEP seemed unambiguous in this, so I would tend to follow what they have to say and Becky's comments, so I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I went out and looked at it. And first of all, let's clarify. I didn't, but you approved the logging permit at the last meeting, 4 of you. And at that time, Michael told you that they were not going to take trucks onto that property, that they were going to use the skidder only to go onto that property, and that they would put a temporary crossing there. So to come back in and ask for a permanent crossing is for sand and gravel operation, which is what they intend to do next. So Becky's exactly correct. We need a positive number 3 and a positive number 5, and it's as simple as that. Do I have a motion to close the public? Go ahead.
Public comment.
Public comment, please.
Well, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Is there anyone on the line to speak to the 96 Shattuck Road RDA? Is there anyone to speak to 96 Shattuck Road application? There's no one to speak.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Eric Gaspar.
Second the motion, David Barnacle.
Okay, Eric Haltman is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. Steve, how do you vote? To close the public hearing? Steve Haltman?
I'm sorry, did you say to close the public hearing?
All right, Eric Gaspar, I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me.
Eric Gaspar in favor of closing the public hearing.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
With that said, how do you vote? Or do I have a motion to?
How did Mr. Goodwin vote on the last motion?
I voted with you on that to close the public hearing. Sorry, thanks for asking. Go ahead. I need a recommendation on the positive number 3 and a positive number 5.
So move, Mr. Chairman, David Barnacle.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second it, Steve Haldeman.
All right, Eric.
All right.
Sorry. I had it hit on my head.
Discussion, any discussion? The chair would like to make one point. Both this stream that we are talking about the crossing on now and the one earlier on the route out there, which is, according to Mr. Barrett, the exact Hammett Brook that David was talking about. And that has a plate over it and will require to be rebuilt also because it's silting into Hammett Brook and it's just a metal plate for logging. So if that is going to become a traffic road to, somebody's land, then both of those should come forward with an NOI. Not just one, but both of them, because they're both doing damage to Hammett Brook with traveling over them. So that's my comment. Any other comments? All in favor? Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman, I'm in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chittister?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you. All right, we are now on 50 Main Street.
Hey, Eric, are you sure that wasn't a fly?
Well, you can never be sure. I'll have to check with Mike Pence.
What's that? Oh,
he asked if there was a fly on my head when I was scratching earlier.
Oh, geez. Okay, we're at 30 Main Street / 20 Fisk Hill Road. Notice of intent development of residential and commercial cul-de-sac. Subdivision DEP file number 300-1086. Okay. Matt, are you with us?
I am here tonight. How is everybody?
Good. Good. All right. Becky, you want to start it off?
Yeah, so this is a continuation. At the last meeting, we discussed project revisions to be forthcoming based off of the first meeting with the planning board. We also discussed the potential vernal pool habitat that was identified on site in the potential vernal pool that is designated by the Natural Heritage Program just off site, and looking at a vernal pool survey. So since the last meeting, LEC, the applicant's consultant, has submitted a vernal pool survey protocol. I provided that to Art Allen for comment. I also reached out to the vernal pool biologist at the Natural Heritage Program that I used to work with and asked him to take a look at that. So I did take some recommendations from the vernal pool biologist, some of my own, provided that back to LEC. They did incorporate those in the protocol and submitted those back. So I did outline what those recommendations were. On here, the only thing they asked for a change, a minor change on, which is reasonable, and I should have written it that way, is that they'll make their best effort, I guess, to notify me 48 hours in advance of when they're going out there, and that also I can attend those site visits if available. So in addition, what we discussed at the last meeting was the identified potential vernal pool by Natural Heritage is just off-site on private property. So since the last meeting, I did reach out to, there are 3 property owners over there that it does appear the wetland is on. I have spoken to 2 of those since the meeting recently, and they both have declined access onto the site. I have not, onto their properties. I have not heard back from the 3rd property owner since I did send a letter out there. With that said, I recommend one of the criteria in which you can certify a vernal pool is chorusing of full chorus of wood frogs during breeding. I did add in there that, I would recommend that, from their area on site that they could try to accommodate those. I want to be clear though too. I mean, if there's no chorusing, it doesn't mean that's not potential vernal pool habitat. So where we're at is we do have the recommendations which were incorporated. If you have any questions or comments on those, I think we can move forward with the review of the on-site wetlands that have been identified. LEC is waiting to go back out. There was that one isolated land subject to flooding that was not able to be looked at by our peer reviewer. They're going to go back out, check that for, evaluate it to see if it is a resource area, and then we can look at it also to see if it has some potential for vernal pool habitat, which couldn't easily be identified at that time. So with that said, looks like we're ready as spring approaches here to do the on-site vernal pool assessments. However, we still have the identified natural heritage potential vernal pool off-site that we don't have access to for this. I don't know if the board has any questions or comments about the vernal pool protocol and the recommendations that were asked to be incorporated.
Well, as far as the protocol is concerned, if somebody doesn't want us on their property to look at the vernal pool, then we can't go on their property. But within our regulations, I think if you read them, they'll tell you that therefore we can keep anything 200 feet away from that vernal pool, that possible vernal pool. So that's the way I would handle that. I would just go on from there. They don't have a plan for that area right now anyway, right?
Correct.
So that would be my answer.
Okay.
David, what do you?
No comment.
No, okay. So Becky, we moving to continuation here?
Yes. I'm going to recommend, because, you know, we are approaching season to do this study and it's going to take some time and we still don't have, there's still plan revisions forthcoming. I'm going to recommend that we continue this out. You know, vernal pool survey is probably going to go into May. I know it sounds like it's a little far out there, but I'd recommend that we continue to our first meeting in May to allow this process to start. And it might not even be completed at that time. So that would be my recommendation, unless there's any concern by anyone. And then also, just so you're aware, we do have a tentative site visit scheduled here on March 9th with our peer reviewer as well, weather permitting.
Okay. Jeff, you want to see if anybody in the audience would like to speak?
Good evening. Is there anyone to speak to the 30 Main Street, Fiskill Road project? Hello? Hello? Is there anyone to speak to the 30 Main Street, 20 Fiskill Road project? There's no one to speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Seeing that, Jeff, Matt, will you take a continuation?
No, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, the time gets protracted. It's not, you know, the best case scenario from a timing perspective, but I do understand that I think Becky's right that it just doesn't make any sense for us to keep traipsing. You guys have a full agenda, I see all the time, so we won't keep traipsing this in here. We'll get some results. You know, I think there's some decent confidence around that on-site wetland because LEC did get a really good look at that prior to weather. And so I think we feel pretty good about that not being a vernal pool, but obviously LEC will opine on that with the study that she's going to do, and we'll get that in front of you guys. As far as the offsite, I think you were exactly right, Ed. You know, that is outside the purview of the road itself. I mean, it complicates matters as we think about the go forward with that particular building lot or lots as it may turn out to be there on that side of the road. But that is obviously a bridge, no pun intended, from your last applicants, that a bridge we'll have to cross when we get there.
I think that bridge he had would cover the whole damn vernal pool.
Perfect. Can I take it?
Yeah.
I do have no, I'm fine with the continuance. Works for me. And I probably will see you guys before that because I know unrelated, if you will allow me, we're gonna bring in an application for Arnold Road, which is the property directly across from where I live. We're gonna do a really cool project there. I think you guys will like that. So it's not development related, it's agriculture related, and it involves land clearing. So don't get too excited when you see the application because I think it really will be a really cool project and a really big improvement. So we'll talk more about that when you guys see it. But I think the spirit of that one is anti-development, not pro-development. So hopefully it falls into your wheelhouse.
We like development. We just like wetlands better.
Yeah, well, I understand.
Okay, I just make that point.
David Barnacle in favor of continuation.
Right. Mr. Barnacle, how do you vote?
Did.
All right. Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman, I'm in favor of a continuation.
Yeah. Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor of the continuation, and kudos to you, Matt, for using the word opine.
Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chidester in favor.
And did I get everybody? And Ed.
Hey, guys, let's not lose sight of the fact that my mom was an English teacher in town for 30 something years, you know?
She did something right by you.
All right, we are now on to, where are we? We're on to 231, 233, 235, Cedar Street, continued NRAD 300-1090 is the DEP file number. All right, Lenny, are you there?
Nope, just me, Ed.
Okay.
I did receive an email from Paul McManus of Ecotech on behalf of Mr. Young. They are going to, they read the detailed agenda, and he has some research he'd like to do. He's just kind of getting back into this project. I'm going to speak to him soon about that. So they did ask for a continuation at this time until our April 6th meeting to start looking into some of the history of the property and the permitting that we discussed at the last meeting. So it would be a continuation to April 6th.
Do I have a vote of a continuation?
David
Should
Barnacle
we
in
check the
favor.
public comment first?
Good, thanks, Stephen. Jeff, can we check for public comment on the lot of 231?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line to speak to 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street application? Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street application? There's no one to speak to that application.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, a continuation, Mr. Barnacle.
David Barnacle in favor of continuation.
Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric.
Just a clarifying question before I vote. Are we going to be requesting that they provide us a plan like Becky had requested to bring the site into compliance by March 23rd along with this continuation, or are we foregoing that request at this point?
No, that's a part of, if they don't find documentation, then that plan will be required. Becky, that's how I understand it, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're trying to put that information together now, so maybe give them the opportunity. They'd have to come back by that date. Well, actually, the 7 days before the meeting would be March 30th, so our 7-day policy. So I think if we give them that time, and if they don't have something for the next meeting, then I think, especially now that they have the other consultant helping them out with this, then make a requirement for a time frame at that time.
Okay.
Okay, Eric? Yep.
All right. Yeah, I was just curious. So, yeah, I'm in favor of the continuance until the 6th.
And Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman, I'm in favor of the continuance.
And Ed Goodwin also in favor of the continuance with Eric's comment. All right, we are now on to 150 Charlton Road, continued NRAD DP file number 300-1088. Becky?
Yep, so it's a continuation from the last meeting. At the last meeting, we did discuss getting a revised site plan. Oh, there's one. To include additional resource area delineation out there associated with the perennial stream. We have since received that plan. My recommendation at this time is that the board request a peer review for the wetland delineation and the ANRAD. And then with that, I'd recommend, because we do need to get the request for proposals out there, get those reviewed and distributed, I would recommend continuing to April 6th meeting to allow for that.
Okay. Discussion. David?
Don't we want to hear from Glenn first?
Glenn, you on there?
Oh, I appreciate, thank you if you can hear me. We appreciate Becky's comments, obviously, and we understood that there was going to be a peer review requirement. So thank you for the continuance we are asking for until April 6th to give you time to ask for several peer reviewers. I imagine a couple peer review companies, or 2 to 3 is your normal, I guess. I take it.
Yes.
And we'll be at the next meeting for them. Thank you. If there's anything else,
Okay.
we know we're on in a little while also.
David Barnacle in favor of the continuation.
We, Jeff, do we want to hear from the townspeople on this?
All of them, or just whoever called in?
150 Charlton Road.
Oh, Jeff.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the 150 Charlton Road application? There's someone out there. I can hear you. 150 Charlton Road application. Is there anyone to speak to that application? All right. There's no one to speak to that application.
Just heavy breathing.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's someone on that line, though.
Yeah. All right. Continuation, Mr. Barnacle.
David Barnacle in favor of the continuation.
Stephen Chidester.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric.
Eric Gaspar in favor, and nice headset, Glenn. Love it.
And
Thanks, Steve Halterman.
Steve Halderman in favor of the continuation, and I'm glad you got those heads.
And Ed Goodwin in favor also.
Thank you.
So we are up 150, and we are on to 118 lead mine. NOI, construction of a single-family home, well and septic system, DEP file number 300-1073. And Gary Kelleher. And I see he has a representative named Glenn Kravosky.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Becky?
Yep. So since the last meeting, I've spoken to Glenn Kravosky. He's now been retained by the property owner to assist him with the notice of intent and compliance with that enforcement order. I have spoken to Glenn, gone over the old permit, the new application, the violations, the concerns, provided him with some materials, and he is starting to work to put that together. Due to time of year, it's been kind of limited to go out and do some of the site work that he needs to do. He did submit a kind of quick kind of draft to show that they're starting to work on something that came in today. I would recommend, I'm not sure how long he needs with, getting out and doing some site exploration and getting some revised plans in, but I would recommend that continuing the discussion on the notice of intent and the enforcement order, since he has the new consultant to help him. My original recommendation would be to continue to April 6th because of the weather conditions and him needing to go out and do that work. I know he started to do a little bit of that. I'm not sure if they think they'd be prepared to have something for the next meeting or not, but it would seem more feasible that maybe having something for the 4-6 meeting and having that in 7 days prior at least, would be more reasonable. But I see Glenn has his hand up, so that would be my recommendation.
Glenn, go ahead.
Thank you again through the chairman. Yes, this first one is number 10 would be for the son's house application. I did listen to the last meeting relative to this, and I did hear that the commission wanted to see the enforcement order on the family home, Gary's house, at least completed with the board understood, and then they were going to move forward with the notice of intent for the son. We did inspect the old crossing that was not performed correctly. It shouldn't have been put in. We looked at the wetland line. There was at least a foot of snow on the ground. So we do want to get out there and make sure that what has been done by Mr. Murphy is going to function if we're going to eventually ask for a certificate of compliance, and that thing, again, having 75% cover requirement similar to what a replication would be. This is restoration. We want to make sure that we'll be able to get that. And lastly, on this same lot, the son's lot, we are looking at the case that this small wetland system begins just off site, can flow to the regular BVW at the bottom of the hill that eventually drains to Gary in the wife's house and then into the lake, that the stabilization of the discharge onto the road be done correctly, similar to Mr. Hill, but we're going to be bringing in existing grades to help us with the other lot, not the one that we're talking about right now, but we'll also look at that swale to make sure it's stabilized and we don't have erosion coming down the roadway and into the wetland. I'll say that for now, and I do appreciate the April 6th continuation on this lot. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Any comments from the board? Jeff, could we see if the audience would like to speak on 118 Leadmine, please?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line to speak to the 118 Leadmine Lane application? Is there anyone on the line to speak to the 118 Leadmine Lane application? There's no one to speak to that one, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jeff.
Can I make one comment?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I just want just because it seems to be a continuing theme that keeps coming up. And thank you for not addressing the information that was supplied to Becky at the late hour today. But I would just like to reiterate that anything that we are going to be reviewing for the April 6th meeting should be in Becky's hands by March 30th. Is that correct, Becky? Is that the appropriate date? So if you please, at the latest, if you please, Glenn, make sure so we can be on task and stay efficient that that information gets into Becky's hands no later than the 30th of March, if you would be so kind.
If I very briefly through the chairman, we understand the 7 days and it had been snow on the ground. We were called in late on this. And because of that late date being called in, thank you. We just got that information in, but we wanted to give you something that you could look at until we get to your next continued meeting. But we understand the 7 days. I said that in my email to Mr. Gendreau. We knew we weren't going to be heard on that other application, but it's something that we did discuss it on the phone, Ms. Gendreau and I, a week and a half ago or so, something like that, a week ago, whatever it might have been. But we wanted to put it on paper so you could see it before the next meeting.
All right, both of you are good. All right, and continuing on with the vote, Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman, I'm in favor of the continuance.
Did I get you, Stephen Chidester?
No.
Nope, not yet. Stephen
Okay.
Chittister in favor of the continuance.
Okay, Mr. Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
All right, and Ed Goodwin in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
I'm in favor.
Yeah, Eric already, he was the one that kicked it off. Right? Right, Eric? All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Without question.
All right. We are moving on. Becky, you had a different date on that. It's not 3:30, it's 4. Change that. 150 Charlton Road, request for a certificate of compliance. DB file number 300-665.
Okay, so I believe we have Glenn Krabowski on here for this too, but I'll just kind of go over quickly my review and recommendations. So this is an older project that appears to be originated by a fuel spill or multiple fuel spills on property across the street from this one on Route 20. So orders or conditions were issued for the installation of injection wells as part of a remedy implementation plan submitted to DEP for the release of that petroleum, which resulted in groundwater contamination. So I went through this file. We also received a letter from CMD Environmental going over the status of the compliance with the cleanup here. It appears, I did go to DEP site. It does appear that they've met those requirements. I went through the permit. What I noticed that was part of the approval with the orders of conditions is that that the board required additional information. Where is it? Sorry, regarding restoration. So restoration was required. Once the remedial activities were completed, the area was to be restored to pre-construction conditions. Pre-construction conditions were to be documented prior to the start of work as a baseline for restoration activities. It doesn't appear from review of the file that we have any information that any of that has been done. In addition, there was stream sampling that was to be done and submitted for review. I couldn't locate that either. So I would recommend that the board doesn't issue a certificate of compliance this time, and that you require additional information just documenting how those conditions have been met or will be met for the issuance of a COC.
Okay. Do you have information that you could pass on to Glenn?
Glenn has come in and reviewed the file.
Yeah.
He's got his,
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Ed, he wants to talk.
Yep.
As usual. We did ask Gary Magnuson to come in to ensure that we could talk about, and I talked to Dan Prouty about this as one of the principals to ensure Gary could be here. I believe he might be here, and then I have a little bit, just very little, to address the restoration that Ms. Gendreau saw in the the original order of conditions for this older phase of the project, the cleanup. So could I ask the chairman if Mr. Magnuson is here, if he has anything more to say?
Sure.
Mr. Magnuson, are you here? He might have had a problem getting on. We talked several hours ago. I'll go directly into the other part about the restoration if I could. The restoration, there on the plan that you might see, you've had it for a while, there's a pea stone channel in the wetland. I can see that that would be one of the restoration points where it said to restore under the old order. There are several piles of fill material or material that was dug out. We took pictures of them a few times, but most recently about a week ago. And so I see that I believe the commission or their peer reviewer, when they look at the site for the wetland resource areas, the riverfront and the BVW, they might be seeing the same thing that I'm seeing in it. And if, again, the commission clearly and most likely is going to stick to the order of conditions that has expired, that these other items of restoration will most likely be required. It is earthwork. We have done these type of things, and we could have a site inspection on this, so we could have an inspection with your peer reviewer if that's added into the scope, because we clearly we will not be hiding this stuff. It's evident, and it is in the order. We could address it under an enforcement order potentially, or the commission could require us to file a new notice of intent to readdress it. But we just recently, in 2020, done a few old orders, very old, similar to this, and finished up the work, at least the taking of the fill piles out and such under an enforcement order. So I think the overall scope of the proposed development in the future might have to, will continue forward with that eventually in that notice of intent. But I don't think you're going to avoid the restoration that's out there. So either your peer reviewer outlines it, or we will outline it, and whatever the commission wants, and then we'll proceed with that last part of the order of conditions, the old one, the restoration.
All right, good. Anybody from the commission? David?
No, I'm confused.
So you're going to clarify it for me. Steven.
I'm sorry.
Steven, you weren't here, so you know what's going on. Right?
The problem is I was here.
Yeah.
No, I said Steven wasn't here. So I remember this, and a good deal of work was done on it, Glenn. I don't think they finished.
If I could, the company that did the work is gone bankrupt, can't find him, and that's why we brought Mr. Magnuson in. So we understand that there's some things like water sampling that wasn't there. There was also some tree, whatever trees were cut, they had to be identified. The snow was on the ground. Those type of things, if Rebecca or from the commission or through the commission requests them. I don't think a lot of trees were cut because the forest is still there. If there's a stump or two left behind, we could identify that. There was the monitoring wells, and then again, there's the fill material, just piles of fill in the buffer zone, which is your resource area. Most likely they would come out, and then there's one pea stone trench that most likely in the wetland on the plan that would be removed and topsoil be put back in. I can outline that, Rebecca, in the order. I'm sure you've read them. Thank you
I have-
again.
Yeah.
So I guess, Glenn had a couple ideas there. So one, either my recommendation would be that, the applicant reviews that and comes back with the restoration plan. And we can take a look at that and you can see if you think it's sufficient after a site visit. He did mention an option of we are going to have a peer reviewer going out there to look at the site. The commission elects, and it could be included in that request for proposal if it's okay with the applicant's representative. That could be an option of getting a draft for a restoration plan too. So I think you can handle it either way. My original thought was to have the applicant put together a restoration plan to present to the commission. So
That sounds good to me.
I totally agree with having the restoration plan made by Glenn or whoever else they hire. We don't need to have a third-party reviewer.
Yeah, I think
This thing has already been started.
Yep, I agree.
Well-
Second, Stephen?
Yeah, I agree with David's comment.
Eric, what do you think?
Sorry, I was saying goodnight to my son. Yeah, I agree. I agree with David.
Stephen Altman?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do too. The other thing though, I don't want to convolute this because I'd like to get the continuation and move on. Glenn, any idea exactly what they want to put here and do here as the new applicant? And wouldn't that have some?
It's not a mystery here. Mr. Procon was here somewhere, I believe.
Yeah, he is here. I saw him.
Okay, I don't see the P. But okay, he owns Interstate Towing. We're talking to Gene Bourbon, Dan Prouty. There's very few locations in town that will meet his needs under zoning, and also that he has to be within, don't quote me on this, but this figure, like 10 minutes from the Mass Pike, because one of his contracts, he works along with the Mass Pike and towing there, but he also works with the police department in your town to store their vehicles. And from hearing from Dan Prouty, this small zoning, which I'm waiting for Dan to supply this for my alternative analysis on the proposed project, will show that there's very few places that would meet the needs under zoning and the needs of interstate towing on the for the Mass Pike and the state police. So that's being said, that is who's looking at this is Procon, interstate towing, which is basically generally across the street, a little bit more towards your downtown.
Right. Okay. Well, I wasn't meaning that. I mean, are they going to put a building in, or are they going to just?
It'll be his. I'm sorry. It will be his site. It will be for towing, and it will be a building. Presently, he's leasing the site that you might see. Again, a little bit west of this site by, off the top of my head, 400 feet, 500, and across the street. That's the towing.
Okay. All right, continuation. Jeff, you want to see if anybody in the audience would like to comment on this?
It's not a public, Ed, so we
What?
don't need public.
We don't
It's not
need
a public.
Yes or no, yea or nay?
So
Mr. Chair, yes?
it's got a DEP file number, right?
Yeah, we're done with the public hearing, so we don't have to go to, not required.
Right.
All right.
So,
Continuation.
All right, I can go home now?
We're all set, Jeff. We don't need it.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
All right, moving forward. All in favor of continuation for this portion of the meeting, Becky?
yeah, we just continue it until we receive that restoration plan, but I would recommend that since it is an outstanding permit that hasn't been completed, typically we wouldn't set a date on this, but I'd recommend, asking, to come back with a restoration plan within a time frame.
Okay, to when?
Ask Glenn when a good restoration time frame.
Thank you for that. If I could, through the chairman. Summit Engineering is working on the plan, as you can see on the corner of the plan. I will work with them immediately to show features that are presently on. Some of the features are on the existing plan. There's a couple of features such as fill piles, 5 in all, fairly large, that I'll ask them also to ensure, I know that there's a couple evident ones on the topo, that they're on the plan. So, and I'll address, again, the old order, look and work and talk to Becky, thank you, Ms. Gendreau, and make sure that we have all the points that we can have for the restoration called for in the old order.
When?
7 days prior to your 6th meeting. So I would love to get this thing in so that we can continue on for Mr. Procon, just to continue on.
So 7 days prior to what?
I think you had April 6th. 7
Yeah.
days prior to April 6th is where we're shooting to have that in your hands, if that works for you.
Okay, great.
4 weeks.
Thanks.
Yep,
Now,
thank you.
all right, all in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halterman in favor.
Dave Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Raul Picard? Just checking to see if you're awake there. All right, we are now.
I'm not going to be here for any more of the meeting. I'm sorry through the chairman,
Right.
but the 508 I know you're happy for that, but 508 International, I believe, is being handled by other people, and you're already continued Mr. Keller under the enforcement because you just received it. So I appreciate it, and thank you, and good night, Conservation. Thank you.
Thank you. New Boston Road, request for certificate of compliance. 300-460. To know Robert Moss. All right. And do we have is Karen here? Karen?
Nope.
No?
Just me.
All right, go for it, Beck.
All right, so actually, where am I on this one? All right, so this is part of a A&R subdivision that was reviewed and approved. It's an older project that never got closed out. I reviewed the plans. There was mitigation planting within riverfront areas. I did go out and do a site visit. Upon review, the property, it appears that some of the mitigation restoration area wasn't implemented or has changed since then. I did work with the property owners. It was part of a real estate transaction that was happening. They did develop a restoration plan, and that there's been money that's been put in escrow, and there's a new property owner now. I have spoken to that property owner. They will implement this restoration plan this spring. So at this time, I'm going to recommend that we hold off on this and that we continue it to the May 4th meeting so that way they have time to implement that plan. They can go out and take a look at it.
Okay. Discussion. Steve, any comments?
I agree with Becky. Hold off on it.
All right.
Not issue the certificate of compliance.
All right. Stephen Chidester?
I agree and approve the continuation.
Eric?
I agree and approve.
David?
David Barnacle, I agree and approve.
And I agree and approve. Okay. We are now on to 116 Brookfield Road. Request for certificate of compliance. SEC file number 07-16. Kind of a file number is that, Becky?
That is a local file number. So that's in 2007. This was the 16th local permit issued. So this was an order of conditions. Yeah. We did have on our agenda a few months ago another permit for this property that was found. It was a DEP file number upon a real estate transaction. We did close out that permit. It was mostly for an adjacent lot where work was done. This was a local permit for work done just in the outer, our local buffer zone. So I did go out and do a site visit. We do have online here, we have Stephen from Burton Engineering. He did go out. Burton did design the plan. He did go out and do a site inspection. I did receive a letter of substantial compliance from him for this. The majority of the work, like I said, was outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. There was a, I don't know if we're getting feedback here, but.
We're getting some back.
Yeah, no. What happened? Someone, go ahead and speak again, Becky, please.
Testing.
Keep going.
All right. So, right, I went out, did a site visit. Stephen from Burton went out, did a site visit. He has submitted a letter of substantial compliance. He did note within the stormwater basin, which is what the work was within the 200-foot buffer zone, there was some vegetation that was required to be removed out of that as part of O&M activities. I did get notification and photographs documenting that that work was done. So at this time, I have no concerns, and I would recommend the issuance of a complete certificate of compliance for this project. There was perpetual conditions, general condition number 22, no fertilizer, pesticide, or herbicides, and special condition number 32. This was for the O&M activities for the stormwater structure.
Great. All right. Any comments? All right, all in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Okay, Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halderman in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Dave Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor of the certificate of compliance.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. We are on to Walker Road. Request for certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-655. Becky?
Okay, so another older project, part of a real estate transaction that never got closed out. This was for the development of a single-family house lot. The limit of work was at 85 feet from the edge of a BVW. I reviewed the file and performed a site visit. The project is in compliance with the final approved plans. There were no perpetual conditions noted in the order. I'd recommend a complete issuance of a certificate of compliance for 245 Walker Road.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Barnacle, how do you vote?
David Barnacle in favor of issuing the order of condition, the certificate of compliance.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Halderman in favor of the certificate of compliance.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor. 2 in a row, boys. We're rolling.
In favor. We're now on Bushnell. 49 Bushnell Road, Chapter 61, right of first refusal request for Ethan Hillman. And basically, Becky, you can speak on this.
Sure.
Yep, nothing.
So, yeah, so I provided this request to you. I did look at it, reviewed it. It's a 5-acre parcel that contains a single-family house. It's in agriculture. It does abut other properties in chapter land, and there is Opacum Land Trust's own property across the street. However, so it is contiguous with other open space. However, it's like a pork chop lot with the house development and a long driveway going up. So there really is, I wouldn't see any benefit of the town acquiring this property as it's mostly a developed single family house. So I would not recommending that they, the Board of Selectmen, exercise their right of first refusal for this property.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Steve, would you not recommend?
I agree with Becky that we should not recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they exercise their first right of refusal.
All right, Stephen?
Agree. We should not recommend purchasing the property.
David?
David Barnacle not recommend.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, not recommend.
And Ed Goodwin, not recommend. All right, we are now at 133, 137, 139 Fiskill Road and 48 Old Farm Road, Chapter 61, right of first refusal. Okay. Becky, 52 acres.
All right. Yep. So this parcel is one that we're familiar with. There was a forest cutting plan out here a couple years ago. So a few of us have been on this property. The site's comprised of 4 parcels, just a little over 52 acres. It was harvested under that forest cutting plan. There were some wetland concerns that came up at that time that were addressed with DCR. It was closed out by DCR. It was also closed out by the town of Sturbridge for their local harvesting permit that was issued for it. The site, it's a forested site. It's a beautiful site, has different resource areas on there. We have an intermittent stream. We've got some isolated wetlands, some bordering vegetated wetlands out there. You know, I looked at it, I looked around at, you know, it is contiguous to other forested areas. It's not contiguous to anything that's currently as open space, and it wasn't identified within the master plan for open space. I did speak to the person who's interested in buying this, and it was noted in the right of first refusal request that I think it's probably the development of a couple of single family houses on those smaller lots. And their intent for this would be that it's put back into the chapter program, and that it would be a Christmas tree farm on about 6 acres approximately, with the rest remaining forested. I think that that's probably could be a good use for this property. Since I wrote my recommendations, like I said it does have a lot of characteristics would make it suitable for conservation property, but since it wasn't contiguous with other conservation lands or identified as in the master plan, I wasn't going to recommend exercising right of first refusal. I did speak to the chair of the Open Space Committee, and she did share some correspondence. They were interested in that this property could have the potential to be good for creation of a trail network connecting neighborhoods in that area, to, you know, potentially the ability to get down to Hall Road and to Town Common. So what they were recommending is that maybe the town does, you know, there's an opportunity to negotiate with the buyers to provide an easement on a portion of the land for a connective trail. So I think that you know, could be a good recommendation, since it is a large parcel, and like I said, other forested areas that may or may not come up for options in the future. So I would agree with their recommendation. That's all.
Mr. Halden?
So sounds like the what you're suggesting is that the forested land that they were going to put back into chapter, that the town would exercise the first right of refusal for that, but allow the couple of single family homes and a Christmas tree farm on the other property. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think so can I just, sorry, I just going to clarify. Yeah. I think that what they were recommending is that the town try to negotiate to get an easement on the property.
For trails that we were talking about?
I think the word is across an easement across the property, not, they didn't want any of the, looking for an easement. They could go from, if you remember the property across the street with the vernal pools that Glenn Krabowski's been working with us with for 5 years.
Right.
And they said that they would be willing to provide some open space. If we could get a trail from, not purchase land and not negotiate, but if we could work to get a trail across their property, either at the edge, that we could make it down to Hall Road. And if we could make it to Hall Road, we already have access to go down into the wildlife area behind the common. So we could make, it could be a good distance for kids to go or whatever. So you got a wildlife area on McGilpin, you go from the wildlife area to McGilpin up across Fisk Hill and down the other side, just on a trail, not on, you know, but that's what what Trails was looking at.
Okay, I stand corrected.
But I mean, I didn't see that we're negotiating to buy the property. I don't think, it's not on the list of.
Okay. Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry, it happens sometimes, not often.
No, you know.
Awfully early in the year, Steve, for your only mistake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those
I am over 5.
Those shots will do it to you, Steve. But go ahead. Anybody else? Eric?
No, I mean, I don't have any problem with the recommendation, but I think we should, pass on our right of first refusal and push that to the Board of Selectmen. And if they want to negotiate something, then, that's fine. But I think that's out of our hands.
I agree. Well, I don't think it's out of our hands. I don't think we want, I don't think we'd recommend it.
Yeah.
I'd say, we'd like to see if they could get some, some access across it, but I wouldn't talk about buying land. David?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I strongly recommend that y'all take a site visit on the property, because I distinctly remember when the Old Farm Road property was actually in the forest cutting plan and was cut. Each one of us who went to that site remarked about the phenomenal size, girth, and height of the trees that were there. And to consider the probability of putting a Christmas tree farm out there doesn't seem likely to me. And in order to do that, you're going to have to cut down all the white pine and hemlock that exists between Fisk Hill and Old Farm Road. And I think that that's looking for difficulty that we really don't want to have. We want to have that kind of tree-covered buffer in various areas throughout the town. I'm not disagreeing with the possibility of having some kind of a path or an easement, et cetera, but I think that you guys really should take a look at what the property is before you send a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. My ancient memory tells me that there's sections in that Old Farm Road that you really don't want this to happen to.
You mean to have it developed?
Yeah. It's the part that's right in back of the Spectran building.
Right.
Only further down.
Right. Well, I think we have enough thing. Personally, I'd like to see a trail come up over that hill, but I would not like to see, and if they put a couple houses in and put a tree farm in, I think that's ideal. Whether they do it or not, I'm just saying that,
Oh, you had your opinion, I had mine.
Yeah, okay.
Trying to move it along according to the chairman.
I beg your pardon?
We're trying to move it along according to the chairman.
No, I'd like to send a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to consider an easement across the property from Fisk Hill to somehow getting down toward Hall Road. And other than that, that we don't have an interest. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that. Eric Gaspar.
Eric? Any further discussion? All in favor? Stephen Chidester?
Yeah, okay. I'm just considering what David said, but
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Eric's in favor, and David?
Not in favor.
Not in favor. And Steve, I'm sorry. Big hands.
I'm in favor.
What?
It's our big hand. there's sort of a protocol here, you know, that I think that if the master planner and the CPC had brought this to us, you know, we might be having a different discussion.
Open Space,
but
Open Space looked into it, wrote, and Trails wrote a letter. Trails is interested. But Open Space doesn't have it on their priority, did not have it on their priorities.
Yeah. Okay, well, I agree with your recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. All right, so then Becky, you got the not interested, but take a look at seeing if we can get agreement for an easement. You there, Beck?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. I got it.
A letter telling we don't want to buy it, but we want to be interested. All right. What is next? We're now to administrative decisions. Minutes or two.
Raul has been here for quite a while. Why don't we do with him? We can do the minutes anytime.
I'm trying to get him on the committee. All right, let's go do Raul. You're absolutely correct. Thank you for bringing it up. We're going, Becky, to the last page, is it?
Second to the last. Topic 18.
Yep, so we have Peter Reed and we have Arthur Reska from Peter Reed from BSC Group and Arthur Reska from DOT on here. So I detailed it.
You should have gotten to him.
Detailed it.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I detailed in the agenda. We received a revised plan based off of our last meeting and some of the incidents that have happened out there. I can let, you know, I went over what I noticed in the plan in my notes here. I'll let Peter and Arthur kind of go over and give you that detail on it. You know, you read my recommendations. I do support this plan. I'm really happy to see the revisions to that long swale. I think that's going to go a long way for the long-term water quality there. I did have a conversation with Arthur at the end of last week, which answered a couple of my questions about some of the things. Part of my recommendations for this would be that, you know, once they're done the work, you know, one of the things we need to talk about and they can go into a little bit is how this might affect the time frame that was previously kind of established for this project, because they did add in a big portion of work, which will change that time frame, but much needed and appreciated. So, you know, my recommendations after the work's done, you know, we don't have a typical permit for this because we've done this under the enforcement order. I would ask, I think it would be useful to have Peter from BSC Group go out or another engineer and kind of do a review and write a letter of substantial compliance that the contractor did implement the project according to the plans. And then that we, as we did before, we monitor that and have that outside consultant review that for us sometime after implementation to see how things are functioning out there and if we're still looking at impacts to resource area. And then after that's when I would recommend, provided you're satisfied, that we release the enforcement order. Just to also add in there was some work that the town has committed to do. That work will be done after Mass DOT's contractor goes in and does the work on the Hamilton roadside. We will have to wait till fall after the drawdown to do some of that in-stream work. And then after that work is done and equipment is out, DPW staff will make some of the improvements we've already talked about along Hamilton Road to help manage some of that stormwater coming off. So that will be in the works. We're waiting for some of that the initial work within those basins, et cetera, to be done, which didn't happen last fall. Therefore, now, you know, we got to wait to draw down, but the town's still committed to get that done. So Peter, I can pull out that plan if that's useful, if you want to go over some of that way, or you just want to.
Has everyone on the commission had a chance to look at the plans and
It was
Raul?
provided.
Good evening, Raul. Good to see you. I mean, I can describe what we've done. I don't know if members have a copy of their plan, or if you can put it up, that would be good too, to share.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we had it as part of our packet.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
So this is the overview, so.
Right, so yeah, this plan helps to sort of, because it's a long linear site that we're dealing with, and the plan on the top there is unchanged from the work that we had proposed previously, with just the two catch basins way to the western end of the top, basically the top of the drainage area along the turnpike. But on the southern, the bottom section there, Rebecca, if you can scroll down a little bit more. So we've added a new area that's to the east end of the project, right there. We're calling that area 6. The area in the center, which is the low point, that area, the pipes have already been put in going down the hill. That's area 3. Area 4 is a north side of the turnpike, and then areas 2 and 5 are that bigger area. Yeah, right there. So how about we go to the next page? And please, anybody who wants to, jump in, please do. Yeah, so the one box to the lower left there, Becky, that's the area 6, where there's existing drain pipes coming from the median that outlet into a swale there. And we have decided to add a catch basin. Well, so the turnpike has what they call this special drop inlet, which is a catch basin that's got a 2 feet by 4 foot grate opening. So it catches quite a bit of water. And then directly over the pipes, we're putting more of a standard catch basin, which is a 2 by 2 grate. Both of them have sumps, so we'll be collecting debris and before it gets into the drainage system. Now, if you scroll to the right side on this plan view, there is an existing drain that comes from the turnpike down into the small little infiltration basin that we had proposed previously. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Arthur, but I believe Arthur did video of it, and that existing plastic pipe was not in good shape. So we made the decision to replace it with ductile iron. And then we come out at a flat slope in order to reduce the velocity going into that infiltration basin. And then it continues into the swale, but that's shown on another sheet. So we can scroll to the next sheet unless there's any questions.
I have one question, please.
Sure.
You indicated debris. Can you give us an indication about what size debris is being filtered out, please?
Well, it's just the small grit that accumulates up on the roadway surface. So, I mean, there may be small pieces of trash, things like that fall down into these catch basins, but it's got to be pretty small to make it down into the grate area because,
okay.
So.
One always worries that everybody's definition of debris size can vary monumentally.
Yeah. Right. Good point. Well, this area is area 3, which had been previously proposed The only change that we're making here is that when we got into construction, Arthur and others noticed that the existing structures that were in the gutter were makeshift, and we really don't know why they weren't very good structures. So Mass DOT has decided to replace each of them. So there are 3 new catch basins going in. And so kind of what we've been doing here is at each one of these points, we have the 2x4 catch basin, which is typically on the uphill side, and hopefully will catch the majority of the water. And then on the downhill side, we have the smaller 2x2 catch basin. So that's the only change on this sheet, is the addition of those 3 catch basins at each of these locations. Yeah, so this is a brand new sheet here. And so we, BSC performed survey just before the snow fell back in December, I think it was. And I mean, we had some survey in this area, but we've augmented it, and we went all the way down to the layout line of Mass DOT. We also located the house there that you can see that's just off the edge of the Turnpike property. It's very, very, very close to Turnpike property. And that's the one that had that incident back in the fall. I think there was a large rain event and then a blockage in the swale. So we have now called for the entire swale to be replaced, and there is a section there that shows stone that we're putting in. It'll look essentially identical to the one that's out there today. The one thing that we did do is we've created a relatively level area to the south side of the swale, and so Mass DOT can come down in here and do some amount of maintenance. It certainly isn't going to be equipment from the that's typical on a roadway, but I don't know. I mean, Arthur certainly can speak to greater length. But anyways, vehicles that can come, equipment that can come down in there to clean the catch basin. So the area 2 is at the left end of this plan view. That's the area that I already discussed. And in the center here, there's another catch basin, which we have the drop inlet, and then we have the catch basin. We've got ductile iron pipe coming down the steep slope. We come to a manhole, and then we turn and we go at a flatter slope parallel to the swale. And the idea here, the goal was really to get that water and outlet it below at a lower elevation than the house, which we've done. We come down, and then at the very end, just before we outlet, we have a third, or I should say a second manhole, and we come out at a flat slope to reduce the velocity. So there will be some tree removal here, but we feel it's all warranted based on all the conversations that we've had. So that's area 5.
Great.
Area 4 is on the north side of the Turnpike, and it's the area. This area had been included in the initial work that we put out to bid, but based on that site visit that I think was last summer, if I remember correctly, we all met out there, and then 2 of our wetland scientists went into the area and put together recommendations, which we handed out to the contractor, and I think maybe to the town at the pre-construction meeting. but we've put that additional removal of sediment buildup that's in the pond. We've put that onto the plan so that it's now part of the contract documents. And then if we continue down on the plans, Rebecca, not the next sheet is the typical profile, but the last sheet, this is the new sheet that shows the two new lines that have been designed. So that's the extent of the changes. Was there anything that I missed, Arthur, or that you want to expand
I
upon?
think that's it.
Okay.
Well,
Well, that's pretty damn good. That's what we were arguing about at the beginning, wasn't it? To get those changes made originally?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Isn't
I
that what we
think there
talked
was, there was the conversation about trying to, which was more of a benefit, to take down trees and do what we're doing now, or to leave a buffer. And so I think we've all kind of come to the conclusion that redoing the entire swale is the proper thing. So
Good. That's good. When, what's the timeline on this?
I gave the plans to the contractor last week. He's looking at them now. Obviously, there's quite a bit of work on that swale. I think up to a couple 100 ton of rock that got to get down there, move down there. So that's going to take some time. He's got to order his concrete structures, which there's been a delay due to COVID on the concrete structures throughout MassDOT. So that's probably the one area that really don't have any control over, is the precast structures.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, one precaster went out of business, and so everybody's kind of scrambling. And a number of jobs have been delayed because of the precast issue.
So what do you think we're looking at?
Like I said, I really can't say that. Like I said, anything about it, because I really don't know. The contractor this year, he's got to get the main line work done so he can pave.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff off the road, doesn't have to get done as quick because it's not on his critical path. His completion date is next September, so he's got to be completely done by then. And that's basically, all I can say.
So we're talking, what, 10 months? Something like that? I don't know.
Probably, I see him working next spring, finishing up. Exactly how much he has, depends on how much he does this year. But like I said, he does have till September of next year to finish completely.
Oh, it's not this year, September of next year.
Of next year, his completion date.
Yeah. God, give me that order for those concrete structures. I'll get them for you before then. Well, the project sounds great. I think the timing sounds terrible. I don't know what.
Well, like I say, the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
The job was notice to proceed was last August, and they just spread it out over, almost 2 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you guys have been good. You've been responsive. I just think this is now. I mean, we're going to flood that guy's house again before you got this thing straightened around.
Well, right after that incident in November, we went out there and we cleared it.
Yeah.
Trees out of it. So it's much different than it was the day.
Yeah, I was, Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Haltman, you? No?
The plan sounds good. I hope that Precast or someone like him can deliver.
Raul, you're in here. Go ahead. I can't hear you, Raul.
Oh, he said to wait for 1 minute.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Anybody else? Eric?
In the meantime, if it is going to take until a year and a half from now, is there any way to ensure that there can be an inspection on that concerned area to get cleaned out, like you just said, Arthur, to make sure the property owner is not put in harm's way again? You know, a more aggressive operation and maintenance plan until this is done.
One of the first operations this spring will be clearing. The tree guy will be in. So most likely that area will be cleared very soon. You know, one of the first things they do this spring, which will help in the flow down the existing swale.
Okay. Will that put the lake in jeopardy of silting?
No, they'll just clear it, and then they'll put the erosion controls in, and then go in and grub it.
Okay. So they won't grub it until they get the precast in?
Well, they won't grub it until after they got the erosion controls in.
But if they don't have,
the precast structures, that's mostly up on the main line and in the two manholes.
well, I thought you were describing some down below too.
Yeah, the two manholes down below.
Yeah.
There's obviously be precast too.
So what are we going to do until we start the project?
Hold on, time out. Wait a minute. Raul, turn your mic, turn your speaker off on your computer. Raul, turn your speaker off on your computer.
Is that better?
There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
You were a rock star there for a minute.
For some reason, the audio does not work on GoToMeeting on my PC, and I apologize for that. So let me just, I know you've been talking about it. Let me just give
Go ahead.
my sense from Cedar Lake, if that's okay.
Yep.
So, number one, Peter and Arthur, this is the best set of plans you guys have put together yet. You're finally addressing the lion's share of the drainage as opposed to piecing it together, especially on that large swale, which is something we've been saying since day one. So I applaud you on the plan and the extra work to add additional drainage in this area. So I know that was a long time coming, but I think it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, I'm floored by the plans, though, however, and the timing that you gave us, Arthur, and you know, we got bumped off from our phase 2 plans last fall to get the balance of the work done, and now you're talking about not just this spring or maybe done by September, but the following year. That's a major issue in my mind, because you might think that swale is going to hold up, but I've seen everything break down in between. So I'd like to get a better, tighter set of dates from you guys much quicker, and you know, that's just not what I was expecting relevant to timing in any way, shape, or form.
Well, those dates I gave are the worst case scenario. MassDOT doesn't control the contractor. You know, we give them.
What's the best, Arthur? What are the best date scenarios?
That they finish by next fall, which could happen, but I don't schedule the crews, you know, so I can't get to anything.
Okay. So the only thing I could say is there might need to be some short-term things done to address any problems in between now and your long-term finish plan, because that's a long time to wait when we're already 3 years into this project. I know you weren't there from the beginning, Arthur, but we've been talking about fixing this even well before COVID, and now we're talking about another potential year and a half delay to get this work done. So that's quite concerning on my part, at least, and will be for Cedar Lake And I'm sure what I'm going to hear from the Board of Advisors on Cedar Lake is to escalate higher up into MassDOT and right back up to Senator Goby and Representative Smola again, which is probably what I'll have to do coming out of this call. Whether they can do any good, I don't know. I'm not blaming you, Arthur. You're the messenger, but that's kind of the reality of where we're at. So great, great plan. Peter, I know your team worked on the revised swale and everything else, and I liked everything I heard in the plan. It's just unfortunately execution of the plan is the issue more than anything right now. The only item that I saw was missing from the plan, which I would strongly recommend, is near the Verzillo's household, where you are doing a lot of tree removal and I would recommend strongly that you add additional vegetation directly behind his house after the project is done, with some tree plantings and other things as well. We've really impacted this family's life quite dramatically with this project. His house is close to your property and very close to the pike. So anything we can do to mitigate visual side of the pike and or noise from the pike would be very much appreciated by the residents. So I'd like you to consider that in the adding in some vegetation in there, which I'm sure conservation would agree as well.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely. Anyone else?
Right behind the house, there was already a relatively flat area where how they made the swale in originally. And that's basically the 10-foot wide area that he just drawn on the plans.
Yeah.
So we don't plan to go much beyond that 10 feet mark. So obviously we can't put plans in the access way because it kind of defeats the purpose.
Right. Yeah. Arthur, not to be facetious, I'm going to, and this is a sincere question. Now, why don't you control the contractor?
Well, we give them a completion date, and it's up to the contractor to schedule his operations to complete it within time. This completion date was probably a little bit longer than was needed, but I'm not exactly sure why it was so long. But
is he the sole contractor we have? Don't we have options?
There are probably options, but the contractor could come back and ask for more.
What?
Which the contractor could get more compensation to speed things up.
Yeah.
Arthur,
I'm not.
Arthur, when is his actual contract end date? Is it September of 2021 or September of 2022?
22. Sorry.
Okay.
He's
all right.
Sent in a schedule that shows him done a lot earlier, but that schedule is not, I can't enforce it. There's no penalty if he doesn't finish it according to his schedule.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Just one more around that. When was it actually signed, or when was it granted? I guess. I mean, I thought this work was already contracted, so.
The notice to proceed was, I think, mid-July of last year. We had the pre-con, I think, mid-August.
Okay.
Right. We had the pre-construction meeting in August, and the plan then was that it was going to get done that fall of 2020 with the first set of work, some of which got done, the rest did not, and now we're adding another year plus on top of that.
Yeah, we're adding some.
So that's what floors me at the time. That's all.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I'd be very happy if we get it done by this September, but not 2022. So, all right.
All right. Anybody else? I'm going to close this down. Hey, thank you very much, gentlemen. Really, Peter, Arthur, We really appreciate the work you're doing. Yeah,
Thank you all.
we're pleased with the
Thank
project.
you.
Anything you can do to push it up would be appreciated. And Raul, same for you. Anything we can do to push this along, we need to do.
Okay.
That's the way I
That's
look
what we
at
can
it.
do.
Yeah. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, can we go back up? Is anybody sitting here that's waiting for something?
Yeah, River Road.
All right, River Road. Let's go to River Road.
Thank you for taking us out of line here. We greatly appreciate it. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech.
Yep,
If you want, I'll just kind of go through the letter that we submitted, kind of give you kind of an update of where things stand. It's been a while since we've been before the commission. As you recall, we did a site walk this past fall with the works, almost all completed, very stable. They've been monitoring the discharges. Both staff at the campground and Jimmy Pioppi's been making periodic inspections up there to just make sure that there's no issues. They've been looking at the discharge points. The water has been coming off clean. There's been no issues since December when we last walked it, I think, with the commission. So we did provide an update through the commission regarding the plantings. We provided details with the plantings. We provided copies of all the receipts and everything for all those plantings that were done. Those were all kind of oversaw by an arborist. There were some minor modifications made to the plantings based upon the specific locations. And some of the plantings, there was a little bit of because we had such a drought, it was difficult to continue to water those. So there was a little bit a delay in some of that. The commission also asked us to look at the infiltrators up in the Meadows area that had been installed. We provided some documentation, on the details for the installation in the area down near the road, kind of the main building. We provided some photos. Unfortunately, they don't have any photos, or haven't been able to find any photos of the details for the other installation. We had no idea that the commission would be asking for these detailed plans. If need be, they can go back to the contractor to seek confirmation of installation of those infiltration systems up in the Meadows area. The third item was the dam. The commission's asked for kind of some details for the dam. As you recall, currently the dam has been removed. There's kind of a spillway coming out of it with a silt boom that kind of crosses through that, so allows some ponded water through there. The applicant, if possible, would like to maintain or reconstruct the portions of the dam to make sure that any sediments or anything within that duck pond don't migrate downstream.
Let's get some terminology straight. The dam's been removed.
Correct.
So you're not going to maintain the dam if it isn't there. You're going to have to rebuild it, right?
Correct. I apologize if I said maintain. It would need to be reconstructed.
There's no dam there, and if we're going to put a dam in, you're going to have to file to do it, right?
Oh, absolutely, unquestionably.
Okay, all right, go ahead. I just want.
So.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No problem. Item number 4 was outlet 6. If you recall, outlet 6 is way in the back, kind of in the headwaters where the stream flows into Pine Lake.
Right.
The discharge point there, the commission asked us to look at different alternatives to see if we can do something to provide a swale or some infiltration. Corey Broder from Lennard Engineering put together a sketch plan that would take, I don't know if Becky can put it up on the screen, but essentially what would happen would be at the outlet, there'd be a swale there so that we could provide some infiltration, recharge, and some additional water quality treatment before that water gets discharged to the Pine Lake. If you recall, there was a number, pretty much every, I think, yep, that's it there. If you recall, I think pretty much every single discharge point on this particular property has been retrofitted from what was approved so that there's additional infiltration, there's additional stormwater basins, so there's significant additional treatment before it gets discharged to the stream or Pine Lake. So in this particular instance, the water gets collected in catch basins, goes through a water quality unit, and then is discharged to the rear of one of those sites. And then it flows from there down the slope into the Pine Lake. What it would do in this instance, I believe there'd be about two trees, like 4 or 5 inch diameter trees that would need to be removed. And then you could install a swale so that the water would slow down, allow some infiltration, and some additional treatment before it reaches Pine Lake. So it would be another water quality feature that could be.
Has this been done?
No,
has it been marked so that we can look at where it's going to go?
Yeah, it'd be easy to go out there because it's right at the outlet. If you recall, we were looking at the outlet number 6.
When you say it's right at the outlet, are you proposing to put it over the banking?
It would be built into the embankment there to create a swale.
Why wouldn't it be right on the land prior to that? That was open.
We looked at those areas. If you don't do a swale, I think what you'd have to do from the outlet, you just have to be able to, essentially what you could create is like a riprap pad. We think that this would provide some additional treatment before the discharge. But if the commission preferred to just place riprap at that outlet, that could be another alternative. But we feel that
I didn't do either of those things. I said put a swale in the flat area prior to the discharge.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the issue there is the elevations from the storm scepter. It would be very difficult to get it to drain that area.
Corey, do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, hold on. Mr. Chairman, haven't we had a suggestion relative to that particular item before by Becky?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Becky, could you explain your idea for that exact area, please? You had provided it 5 or 6 times before.
So what we talked about before, right, we were trying to look at what options could we add some type of stormwater structure similar to what we did further down at the other site, down further on Pine Lake. So that's what we discussed there. So I think the storm scepter originally wasn't supposed to be located that close to the resource area. It was supposed to be located on the roadside on the original plan. Right. If I remember, I think that's what we discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So this is what we had discussed regarding, providing some additional treatment to discharge number 6. Item number 5 on our memo, there was some millings near the pool. Those will be pulled out and either grass or gravel placed in that place. Erosion control monitoring, and we had talked early on about potentially meeting with Becky on the site and then removing portions of the erosion control. I think just essentially between the time that it took to do this and the fact that keeping the erosion control installed for another winter provides an extra level of security measure and erosion control just in case. So kind of the thought process was evaluate it, look at it over the winter, leave everything as is, and then as as spring happens, they can go and start work with Becky and remove portions of the erosion control. Because there is some level of disturbance that gets caused by pulling up some of that silt fence. So if you could wait until May when you're into the growing, late April into May when you're into the growing season, it would quickly revegetate. So I think there's a lot of, I think it's worthwhile to simply wait until the spring and then work with Becky to make those changes.
Okay. Becky, what are the staff recommendations on this?
All right. So going through item number 1, I mean, I went through the letter that was provided and the materials, and I went back to, we had provided some comments on those materials. So there is a table that's included that does show the plantings. It doesn't look like all of the plantings were put in according to what's shown on the table for the orders of conditions. My recommendation for that at this time would be that we set a time frame to complete the plantings. As most of the project is completed now, those plantings, the restoration areas, were primarily a result of the first enforcement order that was issued on this property. So I think that it would be advisable to get a commitment from the property owner for the completion of the planting plan. And I would recommend, because we did see some issues with getting plants last year, that giving a time frame to the end of this growing season would be advisable to get that. I'd also recommend that this is put into writing, that there's a commitment to complete that portion of the project, like I said, as it was the result of the first enforcement order issued on site here. Number 2, as far as the infiltrators, there was the photos that were submitted that do show that in the quad area, in that main building area, that infiltrators were installed there. I think the commission at the last meeting was looking for some additional documentation supporting that those aspects of the approved stormwater system were implemented on site. I guess my main recommendation at this time would be that, proper documentation showing that it has been submitted is provided. Typically, for any project, when we have a sign off of a permit, there's as-built plans, and there's a letter of substantial compliance from a PE that had most, for something of this nature, would have overseen that. But that can say that that's in substantial compliance. So the plans do show that they're there. So I'd recommend that, that information is submitted to show that, or lack thereof, for review and approval of the board. If they're not there, or the amount isn't there, that's something that is a plan change that should be considered by the commission for that aspect of the project if it did change. And I would recommend that we require some information in the near future to kind of help to continue wrap up this project. So the dates that I'm recommending is some type of probably March 23rd, so that way we can have it for the next meeting. Number 3 item, this is talking about the installation of the dam, which Scott went over. That's something that had pointed out earlier. If it is something, there's no dam there. If they do propose to put a new structure in a perennial stream, then that's something that they will have to file for in the future. I wouldn't support that, and I don't know that it would meet permitting standards, but anyone who wanted to propose something can. In addition, some other items that were grouped under number 3 was also the removal of the temporary dam that was installed as a mitigation measure in the fall when we were having all of that turbid stormwater coming off. At the time, I didn't support the temporary dam. I thought that we had achieved some good stabilization going into the former duck pond substrate. We did see quite a bit of migration of sediment from there because that dam did breach of that unknown cause. but we were getting to a point at that point afterwards that I thought that we had made some good progress there, and we're seeing less of that concern. So we do need a plan. That was a temporary measure that the applicant did request in order to, alleviate some of the downstream impacts. I do recommend that a plan is put together to have that temporary dam taken out sooner than later. Obviously, it needs to be timed appropriately. Some of the other items that were grouped under number 3 was also, which Scott, maybe you just forgot to mention it when you're going over, but you did include it in your letter, is some hand removal of the migrated sediment downstream. I would recommend that the board does consider having a plan developed, and I do agree that it should probably be a hand tools type of removal with buckets to take out some of that sediment. When we originally saw this not last September, but the September before, after it happened, I mean, we did document quite a bit of sediment in there, which unfortunately I think a lot of it has migrated further downstream, but there is still accumulated sand and sediment that should be removed. So I do recommend that the commission request that a plan is developed and submitted sooner than later. I'd recommend March 23rd to address this in the near future, because it is a year and a half that it's been there. I'd like to see that's removed as we're moving forward here. With that, I would also recommend, that's for, upstream and downstream impacts there on and off site. Above the former duck pond, we did have quite a bit of sediment that came off site into that, I don't even know what outlet it was termed. It'd be the second one on the site now. I think we were originally referring to it as outlet 1. There is an outlet 2 that's offline now. There was a lot of sand that came off site that's accumulated in that portion of the stream. So I think that should be included with that. So with that, I think there should be a plan that's submitted to remove the temporary dam. And prior to the removal of the temporary dam, I would think that it would be advisable to have all of that leftover sediment and sand in the stream be removed at this time. Number 4 would be the outlet number 6, which we did look at that conceptual plan. I do think that is an improvement over the existing conditions that are there at the moment. As a couple of the members pointed out earlier, what we were discussing before is something step back from the resource area. And I think this plan that has been presented was looking at, what's the best way to retrofit what's been installed. That storm scepter was installed there. I think the original plan, it was step back onto the road. So I think that the commission should go through and see what they think is the best solution here. I think this could be a good solution if the board sees it fit that structure is moved back and something else is done, then that's something that they should consider. Number 5, and actually before moving on with that, I would recommend that, and I think it's probably their intent to have that retrofitted, however it ends up being, sooner than later. But since, we are approaching spring and I'm not sure when their camping season is going to start, it probably would be advisable to have something done before that camping season opens out there, or May 1st, whichever is first. So I'd recommend that the board further discuss that among themselves and what they'd like to see there. The concept plan that was submitted, or if there's something else they would like. Number 5. What is this one? Sorry. This is the milling area. I'd recommend, this area wasn't part of the original approval, that the area is at least replaced with grass and shown on the final plan, since it wasn't an area that was approved for work. Number 6, Scott gave an update on that. I have not received any reporting on the monitoring on site. I'm also not aware that there have been any issues. Number 7, erosion controls. As Scott said, those are still in place on site. So overall, I would recommend that, I'm glad to see they came back with some information, but I thought that, we would get a little bit more information, especially it's been about 2.5 months since we met on this. I think that, everyone would like to see this get wrapped up. And I think that, as we do have an enforcement order coming upon a year, that it would be advisable that we look at setting some firm deadlines to reach these goals and make some resolutions. So that way we can get this enforcement order finalized in the project as well. So.
All right. Comments from the board members. Mr. Barnacle.
To start out with, I agree with all the things that Becky brought up with, but I would like to go back to one of the things that Scott brought up at the very beginning of his discussion. Yes, we would like to have copies of those photos, so you should request them from the contractor. We'd like to have a complete file, not a partial file, of all of the installations that have taken place. And Scott, you did indicate that you could get them by going back to the original contractor. I think that would complete that portion of the file.
Yeah, I think we can get, I don't know if we can get photographs, but my intent was to get a certificate, see if we can get a certification from the installer that it was installed per the plan.
Whatever you think is appropriate to prove to us that in fact they are there without having to dig the ground up and prove that they are there. Since we're not working from a plan that was approved by the Conservation Commission, we need to have some kind of proof that the stuff that you say is there is actually there. Number two, hang on a second, where was I? Oh, discharges. Number 6, a storm scepter. You brought it up. I'm not sure what the heck is going on with that.
The discharge number 6?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think you were at the site walk when we actually looked at this last time.
Okay.
So 5 out of the 6 discharge points have been retrofitted. So, if there was infiltration and direct discharge or direct discharge and there was, some type of storm scepter proposed, all these discharges were retrofitted so that they've got additional treatment. So there was, additional basins constructed, additional infiltration. So there was additional treatment provided all these places. The only place that it wasn't provided was this number 6. So the water comes down, goes through catch basins, and then discharges through the storm scepter, and then comes out of a pipe. And the concern there was essentially you've retrofitted all these other areas. What can we do to retrofit this area? So we had Corey Broder from Leonard Engineering look into it, in consultation with Jimmy Pioppi to figure out what you could actually do that would actually work and function at this location. They kicked around a lot of ideas, and the ultimate idea was to create a swale at the outlet. Granted, you got to cut down a couple small trees, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a swale, you'll get some infiltration and some additional treatment. So that was the kind of the goal, is to see what we could do to retrofit it. And I think it came out to, there was a pretty good idea to create the swale, and I think Becky agreed with that.
Okay. Corey's with us. Do you want to further expand upon that, Corey?
Sure. Through the chair, Corey Broder, Leonard Engineering. So we did look at cutting it back. I think that was what was originally discussed at the site walk, cutting it back between the drop inlet at the edge of the road and the storm scepter. The issue is tying the drainage that would discharge from that drop inlet to a swale and then back into the storm scepter. We would have had to probably remove the storm scepter, another part of the site to do that. I think if the storm scepter was on the roadside, we could have done it the way that we discussed, but the way it is right now, we would have to either remove it or install a new one on the other side. What this accomplishes, this water quality swale, is it gives us an opportunity to recharge some water behind a small 4-bay, and for the most part, it's going to come back into the site a little bit. So it does discharge originally to the flat part of the site behind site 902 and 903. And then it doesn't start sloping down till the end there. It's about a 60-foot long total swale, or sorry, 50-foot long swale overall. So it's pretty flat for the most part. Then it starts sloping down back, towards, it's more towards the wetland area, not the pond area of resource area.
So you're depending upon surface absorption to take care of the problem.
Well, that's a small portion of it, and you'll get some water held back behind that, but for the most part, lengthening the discharge point, because right now the discharge is only a few feet from that storm scepter, and then it goes right down to that steep slope. This will discharge to a flatter swale, lengthening about 50 feet before discharging, rather than 3 or 4 feet from that storm scepter. So it'll run along the slope, the top of the slope, and then start discharging down out to a riprap swale.
Thank you.
All right. Eric?
Yeah, Scott, with regards to the infiltrators in bullet point 2, is there any reason for you to believe, or for us to believe, that a PE is not going to be able to sign off and validate that that's there? Is there any chance that they're not in there?
I fully understand. It's my understanding that those are installed. The problem is you're asking for somebody to certify something's been installed under the ground that they can't physically see. That's why.
Isn't that normal practice?
I'm not aware of engineers that would certify something that they can't physically see. It's as if, let's say it's a septic system, for instance. If somebody installs a septic system and you ask somebody to certify that it was installed correctly, if the engineer shows up after it was installed, they can't certify that. So I think that's the intent.
But the thing about a septic system is that you have a plan and you can walk right out and you know exactly where it is if you have a problem.
But that's understood. But if there's something under the ground, you're asking somebody to certify it that hasn't seen it installed. So,
Becky, what?
Yeah, well, usually, using like the septic system example, usually from my understanding is that you don't have someone come out at the end when it's all completed and look at it. You have Board of Health come out while you're doing it, they check it, make sure it's done correctly, and then they can sign off on it afterwards. So, I think that typically you have someone overseeing this work to make sure it is being installed correctly as part of the process, regardless if it's infiltrators in the ground or doing the basin, that there's engineers assisting as part of that install process. And we have these projects all the time. You are required to have someone sign off and say your project is in substantial compliance. So I don't think it's unrealistic. I think that maybe that there should have probably been some oversight. Maybe that wasn't happening when it was being installed, because typically you'd have that, and that might have been, issues where, changes of staff out there with different engineers and whatnot might have been where that got missed. But I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that someone substantiates that a commercial stormwater system and development can be signed off by someone, a professional engineer.
Like I said,
just one.
All the other I've been there on occasions when the other systems were installed. So it's my understanding all the other systems were installed. So there's no reason to believe that this one wasn't. I guess it's just a matter of we need to provide some information to make the commission feel comfortable that it was in fact installed.
Right. You do.
Scott, who did the installations? Was it Mr. Pioppi?
No, it was a contractor before Jimmy Pioppi.
And that contractor is not willing to certify that he put them in?
I'm not sure that he was even asked at this point.
Oh,
So,
okay. And that's
like,
what our chairman is telling you to do.
yeah, you're essentially asking us to do that, and we're going to have to follow up with that. So
We need a plan. We need a plan for the project, a complete plan.
now,
You got-
speaking of which, there's been some discussion, kind of along this process. Is it worthwhile for us to submit a request to amend the order of conditions with the current plan? So that
Yes, it is.
So
yes, it is worthwhile for you to amend the order conditions with the new plan. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
How many times have I told you that?
Well, we.
How many times have I told you that?
That's fine. We can certainly do that.
Do it. And when can you have it? When can you have it?
We can prepare it immediately. It's just a matter of getting the information. We got to get a new certified abutters list before we file this.
Amend your order of conditions so that we have a plan. Amend it. Give us an amended plan.
I've
plan of the site.
Chairman. So
just what everybody else has to give us.
I've offered it. We'll prepare that. We'll get it submitted.
You've never, you may have offered it, but you've never submitted it. When will I see this? When will it be in Becky's office? When?
I don't see any reason why we can't get it filed in the next, 2 or 3 weeks or so. We've got to get a certified abutters list. We've got to get some information. Excuse me?
2 or 3 weeks, you said?
I think that's a reasonable time frame. I know that it's difficult because we've got
Becky for that.
Excuse me?
I'm talking to Becky. When can we have that? 4/2, Becky? Is that a?
Well, the next meeting that could be put on is April 6th, and our deadline for that meeting is March 16th, and that's a firm deadline.
So Scott, could we have a completed plan for 4/6?
You can get a plan. I think we can get submitted by April 6th, but to be on the agenda, we've only got 2 weeks. And it's taken us a long time to get certified abutters list.
So you can't get it for me immediately, like you said. Tell me when you can get it for me, please.
Depending on, ask the assessor's office.
Stop babbling. Tell me when you can get it for me, please. Please.
I've told. I don't want to be rude here, but you're being give me.
You said you can get me a plan. I said I want a plan, and you said you can get me a plan, and now you're telling me I'm being rude. Please tell me when you can have a plan.
We have an existing conditions plan that we could submit. It's a matter of preparing enough information to provide the amendment request. And most of it is information that we need to obtain from, the assessor's office. And it takes some time for that to happen. They have 14 days, I think 10 or 14 days to issue that. And we have to mail it to them, mail them a check. And it's the last time when I mailed, it took a week for it to get there.
Scott, I just want to add, we had this discussion about the assessor's list last time. The assessor's list gave you a list the same day via email to get one of your more current applications coming in. So I think that because we're not open to the public, we are available. They did turn that around for you that day so you could submit an application. So I don't think you should blame it on them. They do have a time frame, but people are working here and are working to get those things in. So yes, it takes some time to get that, but I think if you contacted them tomorrow, they could have a list for you within a reasonable time.
I understand that, but there's no guarantee of that. They went out of their way to be helpful, and they've been great. But I can't commit to something knowing that there's things that are out of our hand. We can, like I said, my goal, if I can, is to get this submitted in the next 2 weeks. But I can't be held to that requirement if there's something that's out of my control.
So what are you telling me?
I will get it to you as soon as possible. If possible, I would like to get it so that we're on the agenda for April 6th, but that gives us 2 weeks to turn this around. And
Well, why not? What's the next agenda after April 6th, Beck?
May 4th?
Yeah.
Oh, May 4th.
Wait
a minute. We're only having one meeting in April?
Can you have it for May 4th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we got big time by the Board of Selectmen again, David.
What? Would you
We
say
got
that?
big time by the Board of Selectmen. So, yeah.
Oh, we don't have a meeting. Well, you can get to the board. So when's our next meeting after that, Beck?
May 4th is the next meeting?
So Becky,
so we take the temperature down a little bit, Scott. Do you think, is there any chance, is it reasonable to say that by the submission date necessary for May 4th, which is essentially 8 weeks
April
from
13th.
now?
Oh,
so 6 weeks from now would
I
be
can
April 13th.
absolutely meet that deadline.
All right.
Because May 4th would be, the deadline would be 3 weeks before that, which puts us in April. So there's no way, there's no excuses. We can definitely meet that schedule.
Okay.
Becky, what?
I would recommend that the items that were discussed in the letter, the updates on some of those things too, are addressed for the board. It's up to you if you want that to be part of the amendment or if you want some additional information before that. I would recommend that, item 1, the plantings, everything we talked about, including how they plan to remove the temporary dam, restore the resource areas, is included with that.
Excellent.
That sound fair, Scott?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Complete means complete. Do we have a complete agreement to that?
I
mean,
think
I
we're
think
all
we
in
all want to
agreement.
we all want to be done with this, Scott. You don't want to see my face. I don't want to see yours. It's all good. We want to take the temperature down and we want to get this completed, but we need to come to some agreements. And I understand everybody else's frustration, but we have to, I'm sorry if you feel like we're trying to nail you to the wall, but the reality is we have gotten non-committal after non-committal after non-committal. And I realize that you only have so much authority and a lot of this has been directed to you and by your client. But the reality is we have to get a resolution to this and we have to get it now. So if we can all agree that a complete plan with everything addressed, so we can discuss this and hopefully put this as close to bed as possible for that May 4th meeting, Scott. That's my expectation, and I think it's quite a reasonable one.
I think it absolutely, no question. I think it is absolutely reasonable. So we'll work on that. Becky, what's the exact date of that filing deadline? I know it's 3 weeks before May 4th, but it's April
13th.
13th. Okay.
Great.
The real reason we want to push you, on this though, Scott, is because when this project started, Eric and I both had a full head of hair, and so did you. Look what has happened in the interim.
Yeah, my hairline used to be down here when this started.
All right. Do I have an approval on that from the board?
Well, Becky's got something to say.
Beck, go
I'm
ahead.
just going to recommend too that we've been working with plans that, just have things put on it and it's for discussion purposes, but these plans should be showing what your proposal is and what's implemented. So if there's things from these original engineer plans that aren't relevant anymore, that needs to be cleaned up, I think. I think we want to see everything on there. We've got plans that have restoration areas that have been noted. other things let's have a clean, good set of plans, because there's a lot of confusion going on here, which doesn't help. And I think if these are going to be what's going to go forward to be included with a permit, we need good plans.
Yep.
Yeah, Becky, why don't we talk offline if there's specifics that you're looking for on the plans, we can figure that out.
All right, I'd like approval from the board on what Becky recommended, which was to take and but to include her recommendations from tonight into that final plan.
Agreed.
I'm in favor of it, but I want to emphasize that Becky did say during the course of her discourse at the very beginning that she has not been receiving the environmental reports. And if I remember correctly, part of the enforcement order indicated that after every significant rainstorm, we should be hearing about it. And we haven't heard about it. And I guess that means that we're in a drought. And that doesn't seem like what the 14 inches of rain that we've received so far this year would indicate.
Becky?
Yeah, I think we did. So I'm not sure. It sounds like staff might be reviewing the site, but right, we do have the private engineering firm that was doing the independent monitoring. That was kind of put on hold for the winter, but right, spring's here. We're getting rain events. I think it would be useful and will help support your cause that things are clear out there and looking good. Our discharges are looking good. And I think that, having, was it Lutz, I believe now, go back out there. But I think that one of the concerns before was that the timing of their site visits wasn't corresponding with storm events. So I think that, I think it would be useful to have that continue again to help support what your claims are, that the site is looking good. But they need to be going out there during or towards the end of rain events, so we can actually, have good information to look at too.
All right. You okay with that, David?
I'm fine with that, but Mr. Kariski has a question.
Go ahead.
I do not. I'm all set. I think that everything's working great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were holding your hand up.
Yeah.
I think I was praying.
Steven?
Aren't we all, George? Aren't we all?
Any comments?
Are you asking me yet?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Thank you. I agree with all of Becky's recommendations. I just want to be clear that when she was making her recommendations, she kept mentioning March 23rd. But what we're saying now is that everything is going to be completed by May 4th. Is that correct? All those items?
Well, no,
Submitted by April 13th for the May 5th meeting.
April 13th.
And I just want to be clear that the Millings area should be converted back to grass and not gravel.
I got a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky, when you get the letter to Scott ready, could you send it to the entire committee just so they take a quick look at it?
You want me to send a letter out?
Yeah. Just so we're confirming what you're saying needs to be added. Okay. It's all here, but I just want to, some of it was discourse and it has to be changed from discourse to definitive. Okay.
Well, she and Scott are going to discuss all of these requirements too.
Anything, Steve Haldeman?
I guess the only thing that required a timeline that the commission needs to consider would be to put timelines on things like a plan for removal of sediment out of the stream downstream of the project area and so on. Is that all something that we haven't talked about a timeline for each of these elements. And then when that would be conducted. Is that something we need to put in?
I will actually, if I may, I'll put details for that because I think a lot of that needs to happen over this following summer, kind of low flow periods. So my thought was when I put the protocol together, I can establish time limits, and the commission can review those and adjust them if you want to adjust those.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Yeah, I'm okay with Becky's recommendations. And Ed, what you're saying is you'd like the commission to review that before it gets finalized?
Becky and Scott are going to get together and we're going to review because as I say, if you read her, she's got some definitive things in here, but they're wielded in discourse. They need to be specific things.
Right. I agree. Okay, sounds good.
Eric?
Works for me.
Okay, works for me. Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. Good night.
All right, Becky, you want to go back up to minutes?
Yeah.
Gotta find it, yeah. Minutes for 2/20, 2/2/21. Be approved. That recommendation?
Make a motion, we accept
Sorry,
the minutes.
sorry. Recommend approval of the minutes.
What? What'd you say, Beth?
Did I recommend approval of the minutes?
Yep.
Eric made a motion to it, and I'll second the motion. David Barnacle.
Any discussion? All in favor? Hands? All right, I got all 5 hands. We're all set. Becky, you gotta move that along?
Yep. We have 2 more items under old business. Doesn't seem like we have anybody on for them. But, the first one, so it's 508 International. This is the Jennings R and Salu A 27 Lad Road enforcement order. We did receive a restoration plan the day of our last meeting that we said we were going to continue to this meeting. Mr. Kravosky was on earlier, but he said he wasn't representing them on these 2 items. So we did receive that restoration plan. I did review that, and I did make, I recommended approval of the restoration plan with the conditions outlined in the detailed agenda. Didn't know if you had any questions or comments on those recommendations.
I don't.
I'm good with those recommendations.
Okay.
Make a motion
what I
that
can
we.
do-
You want to make a motion, David? Go ahead.
Make a motion that we approve Becky's indications regarding the 508 enforcement order on 27 Lad Road. David Barnacle.
I'll second that. Steve Halderman, I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halderman in favor.
And Stephen Chidesa abstaining.
Correct.
Okay. Item number 20 on here, 508 International. This is Jennings R, B, and I 205B, 205C Podunk Pike enforcement order. I gave a quick project status summary. This is an enforcement order that we issued last fall. We have not been provided with an update on this. I would recommend that we provide a letter to them, giving them 21 days from the issuance of the letter to comply with the enforcement order. The appeal period for the enforcement order has been passed, and they did not appeal it. According to the enforcement order, if they don't comply, if they don't appeal, then they have to comply with it. So I would say we give them those 21 days. If we do not receive any information from them that they're making any effort to comply with it, I think that we should at this point refer this matter to the Board of Selectmen to refer to Town Council to move forward with seeking lawsuit in compliance in Superior Court.
This is David Barnacle. I'd like to approve of what Becky has just indicated regarding the movement of this material to the Board of Selectmen after the 21 days, if no response is received regarding this thing that goes on for an enforcement order from last year.
I don't know if that requires a second, but if it does, I second that.
Thank you.
Sounds good, Eric. Any discussion?
I agree.
All right, well, then let's vote on it. Mr.
Barnacle
Haldeman?
in favor.
Barnacle in favor? Gasper?
Steve Haldeman, I'm in favor.
Steve
Yeah,
Haldeman?
Gaspar's in favor.
I'm in favor, and Stephen Chidester is abstaining. Okay, that's 4 and 0 and 1. Where to next, Beck? What are we gonna do next here?
Oh, we're at the bottom of the list. Committee updates. Any
Okay.
committee updates?
CPA, we have, our next meeting is March, I believe it's March 22nd.
And the next Trails Committee meeting is the second week of this month, which is next Tuesday. Sorry, next Thursday, probably.
Supposedly there's a Lakes meeting coming up in April, so you know, we got that, right? We got that coming back.
Well, have we got,
I mean, it's
Have
coming
you
like
gotten
Christmas.
a date from someone?
No, April. They didn't say 2021, so it might be 22.
a bathing suit.
It is almost swimsuit season.
Agents report?
So the only thing I was going to add in that, well, I have two things. So our next meeting, we have WPI students that have been working with us, and Tom Chamberlain from the Trails Committee and some other staff on looking at trail expansion from the 2B parking lot at 501 Main Street through some town-owned property to provide access to a future bridge to access Riverlands. So we do have tentatively scheduled that they will be giving us a presentation on their work. We did have a meeting with them a few weeks ago, and they presented their kind of concept and options for plans out there. So they would like to, as part of this project, present this. So we will schedule them. I haven't heard from them that it's changed. We are going to schedule them at the beginning of our next meeting to give that quick presentation and have comments. We'll invite some members from the Trails Committee, and if anyone from the Planning Board is interested in seeing that presentation too. So we will have that right in the beginning, and then we'll have our public hearings after that. As of right now, we have 8 new public hearings for the March 16th. So I got excited there about 4, but yeah. So we also we have site visits that we'll have scheduled for this coming Tuesday for that meeting. And I will send that out tomorrow, what our agenda will be for that. There's a few new projects, some things we might not need to go to. I'll talk to Ed tomorrow and we'll set a schedule for that. We do have the 30 Main Street 25th Kill that we delayed doing that site visit due to snow cover. To go out there and take a look at that too. So we'll do that first, meet our Alan, and then we'll figure out the rest of the schedule. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about that project was I did mention it in my notes that they filed the ENF to MIPA. I did receive notification from MIPA yesterday, I believe, that they did schedule. It's going to be a Zoom meeting for that instead of an on-site site visit. So that will be this coming Tuesday, March 9th at 2:00. There will be a Zoom meeting for that. I didn't know if the board wanted to designate a member to, I'll participate obviously, but to participate on behalf of the board with that and work on a response to MIPA on that ENF with me. Happy to do it, but it would be nice if a member of the board had an interest in doing that too, just to have a second set of ears and eyes on the ENF.
Anyone want to volunteer for that?
Do we know what time that meeting is, Becky?
2.
The meeting's at 2:00.
Yeah, Becky, I would love to volunteer. I just don't have the time to do it. It's a problem.
I need to check. I've got an eye doctor appointment on that day, and I can't remember what time it is. I'd have to check, but I would sit in if I don't have that eye doctor appointment. But I kept putting them off until at least I've got my 2 shots. So I do have my 2 shots, and that'd probably be about the right time.
Mazel tov. Nice.
Let me know.
The only good thing about being over 75 or being 75. So.
I will sit in if you can't do it, Steve.
Okay, I'll let you know. Thanks.
And I don't want to pour water on Becky's good information regarding only 6 new public hearings for the next meeting, but we did continue 8 items tonight.
We didn't continue any to the next meeting, though.
Yeah, everything is in April.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. Also, just so you're aware too, we were approached. We're going to be doing a Zoom meeting. Actually, I think Aaron's going to sit on it because I'll be out with site visits and we have the NEPA thing at 2. But Holyoke Community College did reach out to us, and we'll be attending a Zoom meeting to kind of go over, some of like their environmental science instructors will be on there, see what type of projects maybe they could do for us, or internship opportunities in the future to help with some of our things here. So that's something that would be a good benefit if, when we can have interns again, to have maybe a college-aged intern come in and help us with some projects here, update records, things like that, etc. So we were going to have 2 Tantascwa high school students this year. We had 1 last year, but everything at Tantascwa was put on hold with the internship program with COVID. So just so you're aware, you probably got the email, MACC conference. Obviously not doing that big in-person conference again this year, but they are doing a virtual conference. It's going to be over 2 Saturdays, but they are going to have workshops and things like that during the week too. Please let us know if you want to sign up. That is something that we do have in our training budget that we do fund. I didn't notice, I combed through the email, I didn't see a required registration date this year, probably because it is virtual, but I'm sure there's going to be some deadline for that if you are interested. It's going to be April 6th through 17th, so it's around this time every year, but if you're interested, they have a lot of different things on there, and it's nice too, you don't have to leave your house. So. Oh yeah, and then Aaron had sent an email out. I need to do it as well, but the conflict of interest, we do need to fill that out. We can resend you that email. We need to get that over to the town clerk.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Becky, I found mine from February of last year. Should I send that in? I have the certificate completed.
Oh yeah, if you got it. I don't know if you were on the list or not, but if you have it,
I have
you can
it.
even just
Let's see if I can drop it off.
If you can drop it off.
I'll try to scan it.
There's a really oh, Dave, no, you're not on there. We don't need yours.
Send me a copy. I need the
okay. Send me a copy. I need the answers. Who's on the list there? Ed?
I am.
Stephen? Eric?
It feels like everything I do now, it feels like I did it about 2 weeks ago,
Time's
when you've been
closing
on
in
the
on
board
us.
as long as you know. All right, I don't have anything else, so.
Stephen, it's your time.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Adios. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Aaron.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you.
Sorry about the number of,